The Ethron's roar shook the arena walls as Senna Vale hit the blood-soaked sand. Above her, Alpha King Valdrich's face was stone. Around her, thousands screamed for her death. She was the reject, the cursed Omega no pack wanted. And this pit, where warriors died screaming, was her execution dressed as mercy. But when the beast charged, Senna didn't run. She didn't beg. She opened her mouth and spoke in a language that shouldn't exist. The monster froze mid-strike. Then, it bowed. Want to see how the worthless Omega becomes the one they all fear? Stay until the end, hit that like button, and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. The slave auction smelled like fear and unwashed bodies. Senna stood on the platform with her wrists chained, her gray eyes fixed on nothing. Around her, Omegas were being sold off one by one, pretty ones, useful ones, ones who could still pretend they had value. The auctioneer's voice was a drone she'd learned to tune out years ago. Lot 47, the man barked. Female Omega, 18 winters, no pack affiliation. A snort came from the crowd. Someone spat. Senna didn't flinch, she was used to it. Opening bid, 10 silver. Silence. The kind that pressed down like a hand on your throat. 5 silver, the auctioneer tried again, desperation creeping into his voice. Nothing. Not even from the flesh traders who usually bought the leftovers. Senna's father had sold her here 3 days ago, dumped her like spoiled meat and walked away without looking back. She'd watched him go, waiting for something, anger maybe, or hurt, but there was nothing left inside her to feel with. They'd carved it all out years before, starting the day she was born. Born cursed, they called it. Born wrong. Her mother had died screaming her into the world, and her father blamed Sina for every breath she'd taken since. The pack had agreed. Too weak to shift, too broken to bond. An Omega so worthless even other Omegas avoided her. 1 silver! The auctioneer practically shouted. A man in the back laughed. I wouldn't take her for free. More laughter. The sound washed over Senna like dirty water. She kept her eyes down, kept breathing. That's all she had to do, just keep breathing until it was over. Going once? 500 gold. The arena went dead silent. Senna's head snapped up. 500 gold? For her? That was insane. That was... The crowd parted like a wound opening. Alpha King Valdrich walked through them like they were smoke. Senna had never seen him in person before. Nobody had. Not really. The king didn't leave his fortress except to kill things. But she recognized him from the stories. 7 feet of muscle and murder, with eyes the color of winter ice and scars that told stories in a language of violence. He stopped at the edge of the platform, looked at her. Just looked. Senna felt something crack in her chest. Not hope. She'd killed that a long time ago, but maybe curiosity. Why would the most powerful alpha in 5 kingdoms want a broken Omega? Sold! The auctioneer squeaked before anyone could think too hard about it. The guards unchained her and shoved her toward the steps. Senna stumbled, caught herself, kept walking. Valdrich didn't move, didn't offer a hand, just watched her approach with those dead eyes. When she reached him, he spoke for the first time. You'll do. That was it. No explanation, no greeting. He turned and walked away. A guard grabbed Senna's arm and dragged her after him. They threw her in a cell, not a dungeon. The king's fortress didn't bother with dungeons. This was something worse. A holding pen carved into black stone, with walls that sweated moisture and a floor that never got warm. There were others there already. Women, mostly. All Omegas. All looking at Senna like she was diseased. New meat, one of them muttered. She had scars running down her face like claw marks. What'd you do? Nothing, Sina said. The woman laughed. It was an ugly sound. We all did nothing, honey. That's why we're here. Senna sat in the corner and pulled her knees to her chest. The stone was cold enough to hurt. She closed her eyes and tried not to think about what came next. A guard came for her at dawn. He didn't speak, just unlocked the cell and jerked his head. Senna followed him through corridors that got progressively darker, deeper, wronger. The air here had a smell, metal and rot and something animal. They stopped at a massive iron door. Strip, the guard said. Senna stared at him. You deaf? Strip. You go in wearing nothing but skin. King's orders. Her hands shook as she pulled off her clothes. The guard didn't even look at her. When she was done, he opened the door and shoved her through. Senna stumbled into an arena. It was huge. Bigger than the auction house, bigger than anything she'd ever seen. The walls were smooth black stone rising 50 feet high, with viewing platforms carved into the rock. And in the center, surrounded by sand the color of old blood, was a pit. The Ethron's pit. Senna knew about the Ethron. Everyone did. It was the king's beast, the monster he kept chained beneath his fortress. Part wolf, part something older and darker. It had killed 24 warriors in trials over the past year alone. Strong alphas, trained soldiers, and now they were feeding it a broken omega. Above her, on the highest platform, Valdrich sat on a throne of black iron. His council flanked him, hard-eyed men and women who looked like they'd kill you for sport. The arena floor had maybe 100 others watching, guards, courtiers, people who'd come to see the show. Nobody was betting on her survival. A gate groaned open on the far side of the pit. The Ethron came out slowly. It was the size of a warhorse, with fur like oil and eyes that burned yellow-green. Its teeth were too long for its mouth. Its muscles moved under its skin like separate living things. It saw Senna and went still. The crowd held its breath. "This is the trial," Valdrich's voice echoed down, cold, empty. "Survive, or don't." The Ethron charged. Senna didn't run. She couldn't run. Her legs had stopped working. Her whole body had locked up, frozen by the same terror she'd felt every day of her worthless life, the certainty that she was about to die and nobody would care. The beast was 10 feet away. 5. Senna opened her mouth, and instead of screaming, she spoke. Not in any language she'd been taught, not in the common tongue or the pack speech her father had beaten her for not understanding. This was older, deeper. It came from somewhere in her chest that had never made sound before, pulling words out of her like roots from dark soil. The Ethron slammed to a stop so hard it left gouges in the sand. Its burning eyes locked on hers. Senna kept speaking. She didn't know what she was saying. The words had no meaning she could grasp. But she felt them travel across the space between her and the monster, felt them sink into its mind like hooks. The beast's lips pulled back. Its whole body trembled. Then it lowered its head, slowly, deliberately, and bowed. The arena erupted. Shouts, screams. Someone was cursing. Someone else was praying. Above it all, Senna heard Valdrich's voice cut through like a blade. "What did you do?" She looked up at him. The Alpha King was standing now, both hands gripped on the edge of his platform. For the first time, there was something in his face besides ice. Rage. "I don't know," Senna said. Her voice came out hoarse. Human again. "Lie. I'm not. What are you?" The question hit her like a fist. Senna stumbled back. The Ethron moved with her, staying close, positioning itself between her and the watching crowd, protecting her. That's when she understood. They didn't bring her here to die. They brought her here to see if she could do exactly this. "You knew," she said. Her voice was shaking now, but not from fear, from something hotter. "You knew what I was." Valdrich's smile was a razor. "I knew you were cursed. I knew your pack exiled you for speaking to animals like some kind of witch. I knew you were worthless to everyone, except me." He descended from the platform. The crowd parted. When he reached the pit's edge, he looked down at her with those winter eyes. "The Ethron killed the last 3 handlers I gave it, ripped them apart. I need someone it will obey." His gaze flicked to the beast, then back to her. "Congratulations, you just became useful." Senna's throat tightened. "I'm not—" "Yes, you are." He turned to his guards. "Chain it, chain her, take them both to the lower kennels." Wait, but the guards were already moving. They had poles with loops of silver-threaded rope that they threw over the Ethron's head. The beast snarled but didn't fight back, didn't attack. It kept looking at Senna. Someone grabbed her from behind. Cold iron clamped around her wrists. She tried to pull away, but there were too many of them. "You don't understand," she said desperately. "I can't control it." "You just did." Valdrich walked away, didn't look back. They dragged Senna out of the arena, the Ethron following on its chains, and she realized with a sick clarity that she'd just traded one kind of slavery for another. The kennels were underground. They put Senna in a cell attached to the Ethron's pit, a stone room with a cot and a bucket and nothing else. The beast was separated from her by iron bars as thick as her wrist, but she could hear it breathing in the dark, could smell it, blood and earth and something wild. "You'll feed it twice a day," the guard told her. He was older with a face like worn leather. "You'll clean its pit. You'll train it to respond to the king's commands. And if it kills anyone," he smiled. It wasn't friendly. "We'll let it finish with you before we put it down." The door slammed shut. The lock clicked. Senna sat on the cot and put her face in her hands. She didn't cry. She'd forgotten how years ago. Instead, she thought, they knew about her curse, the things she'd hidden her whole life, the ability to speak to beasts in a language that made them listen. Her father had beaten her bloody the first time she'd done it, trying to calm their pack's hunting dogs. Called her unnatural, demon-touched. He'd hidden it for years, kept her locked away where nobody could see. And then, when the beating stopped working, when she started talking to wolves in the forest, to ravens, to things that shouldn't understand, he sold her, but not randomly. Someone had told him where to take her, someone who knew the king needed exactly what she was. Senna's hands curled into fists. A low sound came from the Ethron's pit, not a growl, something softer. She looked up. The beast was pressed against the bars, watching her with those burning eyes. Up close, she could see the scars on its body. Whip marks, burn marks, the kind of damage that came from years of being broken. "They hurt you," Senna whispered. The Ethron's ears flicked forward. She stood slowly and walked to the bars. The beast didn't move, didn't threaten. It just waited. Senna reached through the bars. Her fingers touched its nose. The Ethron closed its eyes. And in that moment, Senna felt it, the connection. Not words exactly, more like understanding. She could feel the creature's pain, its rage, its desperate loneliness. It had been a weapon for so long, it didn't remember being anything else. Just like her. "I don't know what I'm doing," she told it. "I don't know how to help you. I don't even know how to help myself." The beast opened its eyes, looked at her, and Senna heard it. Not in her ears, deeper. Then we learned together. She jerked her hand back. "You can speak?" "No. You hear." Senna's legs gave out. She sat hard on the stone floor, staring at the creature. "What are you?" she breathed. "What they made me." The Ethron tilted its head. "What are you?" "I don't know." "Liar." She laughed. It came out broken. "Fine, I'm cursed, wrong, born bad and got worse." "No. Yes. You are the first thing in 50 years that has touched me without wanting to hurt me." The beast lowered its massive head until they were eye to eye. "You are not wrong. You are necessary." Senna's chest hurt. "I don't want to be necessary. I want to be free." Same. They sat there in the dark, girl and monster, both of them chained to a king who saw them as tools. Finally, Senna spoke again. "He's going to use me to control you, to make you fight for him." "Yes. And if I don't do it, he'll kill us both." "Yes. So we have two choices. Obey," she met the Ethron's burning gaze, "or break everything." The beast's lips pulled back. It might have been a smile. "I like you." They came for her the next morning. A different guard this time, younger, with eyes that wouldn't quite meet hers. He led her up through the fortress, through corridors of black stone and cold iron, until they reached a training yard. Valdrich was waiting. He stood in the center of the yard with his arms crossed, watching her approach. Behind him, a dozen soldiers stood in formation, armed, ready. "You're going to demonstrate control," the king said without preamble. "The Ethron will be brought out. You will make it perform 3 commands: sit, attack the target, and heal. Fail any of them." He gestured to the soldiers. "And we find out if you bleed red like everyone else." Senna's mouth went dry. "I told you I can't control it. You controlled it yesterday." "That was different." "Then make it the same." The gate opened. The Ethron came through it on chains, flanked by handlers with spears. It saw Senna and immediately pulled toward her, dragging the handlers with it. "Hold!" one of them shouted. The beast ignored him. It was focused entirely on Senna, those burning eyes locked on hers. She took a breath, let it out slow. "Let it go," she said. The handlers looked at Valdrich. The king nodded. They released the chains. The Ethron charged straight at Senna. The soldiers tensed, spears rising. She held up one hand. The beast stopped a foot away from her, sat, looked up at her like it was waiting for permission to breathe. Senna heard Valdrich's sharp intake of breath. "Turn around," she said quietly. The Ethron turned. "Lie down." It lay down, massive head on its paws. "That's not one of the commands," Valdrich said. Senna looked at him. "You said demonstrate control. This is control." His eyes narrowed. He gestured to a straw dummy across the yard. "Make it attack that." Senna hesitated. The Ethron was watching her, waiting. She could feel its confusion through their connection. It didn't understand why she would want it to hurt something. "Trust me," she thought at it. "It's not real. It's just—" "I know straw from flesh," the Ethron's voice rumbled in her mind. "But I will do this if you need." "Go," Senna said aloud. "Attack." The beast moved like black lightning. One moment it was lying down, the next it had crossed the yard and torn the dummy to shreds. Straw exploded everywhere. The soldiers jumped back. One of them made a sign against evil. Valdrich's expression didn't change. "Heal." Senna held out her hand. "Come." The Ethron came back to her side immediately, sat again. The yard was silent except for the wind. Finally Valdrich moved. He walked toward them slowly, deliberately. The Ethron's lips pulled back in a warning snarl, but it didn't move, didn't attack. The king stopped a foot from Senna, looked down at her. "How?" he said. "I don't know." "Yes, you do." His voice was soft, dangerous. "You speak to it. In that language, what is it?" Senna's jaw tightened. "I don't have a name for it." "But you understand what you're saying." "No." He grabbed her chin, fast, hard enough to hurt. Senna flinched, and the Ethron lunged. "Stay!" Senna shouted. The beast froze mid-leap, every muscle locked. Valdrich smiled. "Interesting. Let me go?" "No." He turned her face, studying her like she was a puzzle. "You're more than a handler, more than a beast speaker. You're bonded to it." "I'm not—" "Don't lie to me." His grip tightened. "I've been trying to bond with the Ethron for 3 years, failed every time. But you do it in a day. How?" Senna met his eyes, saw the rage there, the hunger. "Maybe it's not about strength," she said quietly. "Maybe it's about not being a monster yourself." Valdrich's hand dropped like she'd burned him. For a long moment, he just stared at her. Then he turned and walked away. "Put her back in the kennels," he said over his shoulder. "Tomorrow we start real training. And if she refuses to cooperate," he paused at the gate, "remind her that I own her, body, breath, and blood." The training started the next day. They brought Senna up to the yard at dawn, made her stand in the cold while they brought the Ethron out. Then Valdrich gave commands. "Make it attack the targets. Make it defend against the soldiers. Make it hold position while under assault." Every command was designed to turn the beast into a weapon. Every exercise was about control through pain. Senna did what she was told, hated herself for it. But she learned. She learned that the Ethron had been captured as a cub 50 years ago, taken from the deep forests where things older than kingdoms still lived. She learned that every Alpha King since then had tried to bond with it, failed, and beaten it bloody in frustration. She learned that Valdrich was the worst of them. "He's afraid of you," she told the beast one night, sitting in her cell while it pressed against the bars. "That's why he hurts you, because you're the one thing in his kingdom he can't truly dominate." "He should be afraid," the Ethron said. "I could tear his throat out." "Then why don't you?" "The chains, the collar. They're spelled with silver and old magic. While I wear them, I cannot kill him." Senna looked at the thick iron collar around the beast's neck. Runes glowed faintly in the metal. "What if someone took it off?" "No one can. Only the king's bloodline can open the lock." She sat back. "Then we're trapped." "Yes. Forever." The Ethron's eyes glowed brighter. unless we change the game. How? You are bonded to me. I am bound to him, but the bond is not complete. He tried and failed too many times. There is a gap, a weakness. Senna's heart started beating faster. What kind of weakness? If you strengthen our bond, if you truly become my handler, not just a voice I obey, you could complete what he started, become the anchor. And that helps us how? Because then he would need you to control me, and without you, the Ethron's smile was all teeth. He loses his greatest weapon. Senna understood. It was leverage, the only kind that mattered in a place like this. How do I strengthen the bond? Blood, the Ethron said simply. You give me yours, I give you mine. We become pack. That's insane. That's survival, she was right. Senna knew it, hated it, but knew it. If I do this, she said slowly, we do it my way, not his. We don't become what he wants us to be. Agreed. Sina looked at her palm, then at the bars. Tomorrow, she said, during training, he always brings me close to you before commands. That's when we do it. You're sure? No. She wasn't sure of anything. But sitting in this cell waiting to be used until they killed her, that wasn't living. That was just dying slowly. I'm sure. The next day, Valdrich changed the routine. Instead of bringing Senna to the training yard, he brought her to his war room. It was a circular chamber at the top of the fortress, with walls covered in maps and weapons. A fire burned in the center, casting everything in red-gold light. Sit, he said. Senna sat. She had no choice. Valdrich poured wine into 2 cups, slid one across the table to her. You've done well with the beast, he said. Better than anyone expected. Senna didn't touch the wine. You mean better than you expected? His smile was sharp. Yes. So what do you want? Direct. I like that. He took a drink. I want to know what you are. Your father told me you were cursed, that you spoke to animals. But this, he gestured vaguely. This is more than that. I don't know what I am. Another lie. It's the truth. Senna met his eyes. I've been speaking to beasts since I was 6. My father beat me for it. Called me demon-touched. Wrong. And maybe he was right. Maybe I am cursed. Or maybe, Valdrich said softly, you're exactly what this kingdom needs. The words hung in the air. Senna's hands clenched in her lap. You don't need me. You need the Ethron. I'm just the key that opens the lock. True. He studied her over the rim of his cup. But you're a key that thinks, that feels, and keys like that. His eyes glinted. They can be dangerous. Is that a threat? An observation. He set down his cup. Let me tell you a story. 50 years ago, my grandfather captured the Ethron. He thought it would make him unstoppable. Instead, it made him paranoid. He spent the last decade of his life trying to control a creature that wouldn't bend. Died in his sleep, probably from the stress. And you want to succeed where he failed. I already have. Valdrich leaned forward. Because I have you. The way he said it made Senna's skin crawl. I'm not yours, she said. Yes, you are. I bought you. Your life belongs to me. My life was never mine to sell. Something flickered in his expression. No, I suppose it wasn't. He stood. Tomorrow, we test the bond in real combat. There's a rogue alpha causing trouble in the southern territories. You and the Ethron will handle it. Senna's stomach dropped. Combat? You wanted to be useful. This is how. He walked to the door, then paused. Succeed, and I'll give you better quarters. A real room, maybe even some freedom. He looked back at her. Fail, and I'll find out if the Ethron mourns. The door closed behind him. Senna sat there, shaking, real combat, against an alpha, with a beast she'd only bonded to a week ago. They were going to die. They left at dawn. Senna rode in a wagon with 6 guards, the Ethron chained in a cage behind them. The journey took 2 days through frozen forests and dead villages. The southern territories were wasteland, burned and broken from decades of fighting. The rogue Alpha had claimed an old fortress, fortified it, killed everyone who came close. He's insane, one of the guards told Senna. Lost his pack in a plague, then lost his mind. Now he thinks he's building a new kingdom. How many does he have with him? 20? Maybe 30? All outcasts and criminals. Senna looked at the Ethron's cage. The beast was watching her through the bars. We're going to die, she thought at it. Possibly, it agreed, but not easily. When they reached the fortress, Valdrich was already there. He'd ridden ahead with his personal guard, 50 warriors in black armor. They'd surrounded the place, but hadn't attacked. Waiting for your weapon, one of the guards muttered. They unlocked the Ethron's cage. The beast came out slowly, chains dragging. Its eyes found Sina immediately. Valdrich rode up. The Alpha calls himself Draven. He's holed up in the main hall with his people. I want him alive for questioning. The rest, he shrugged. Don't care. Sina's mouth was dry. You want me to send the Ethron in alone? I want you to go with it. Her heart stopped. What? You're bonded. It fights better with you close. So you'll go in together. His smile was ice. Consider it a trust exercise. I'm not a warrior. Then don't fight. Just don't die. He gestured. 2 guards grabbed Senna and started pulling her toward the fortress gates. The Ethron snarled, lunging against its chains. Control it, Valdrich snapped, or I will. Senna held up a hand. Stop. Please. The beast went still. She looked at Valdrich, saw no mercy there, no hesitation. Fine, she said, but if we're doing this, take off its chains. No. You want it to fight at full strength? Then let it move. She stepped closer to the Ethron. I can control it. You know I can. Valdrich stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. Do it. The guards removed the chains. All except the collar. The Ethron shook itself, muscles rippling. It looked at Senna. Ready? No. Never. But she nodded anyway. They walked through the gates together. Inside, the fortress was a maze of broken stone and shadows. Senna could hear voices deeper in, shouts, laughter, the clash of weapons. The rogue pack was celebrating something. The Ethron moved silently beside her, eyes scanning every corner. 12 ahead, it said, armed, drunk. Can you take them? Easily, but quietly? We have to try. They crept forward. The hall opened into a courtyard. Senna saw the men, rough, scarred, some of them barely holding weapons straight. The rogue Alpha sat on a throne of scrap metal, drinking from a horn. He was massive, bigger than Valdrich. His eyes were yellow mad. The Ethron tensed. He smells wrong, sick. Senna saw it too. The Alpha's skin had a gray tint. His movements were jerky. Whatever plague had killed his pack, it hadn't quite finished with him. We can't fight him, she whispered. Not head on. Then how? She thought fast. Make noise. Draw them out. I'll circle around and… Well, well. Senna's blood froze. Draven was looking right at them. The king sends a girl and a dog. He stood slowly. Should I be insulted? The Ethron's growl shook the stones. Draven laughed. Oh, it's angry. Good. He pulled a sword from his belt, crude but sharp. I was getting bored. His men spread out, surrounding them. Senna's mind raced. 12 fighters, 1 insane Alpha. No cover, no backup. They were going to die. No, the Ethron said. We're going to survive. Together. It moved. The beast became a blur of black fury, tearing through the rogues like they were paper. Blood sprayed. Men screamed. Senna pressed her back against the wall, trying to stay out of the way. Draven came for her. He was fast, too fast. His sword slashed down. The Ethron caught it in its jaws, bit through the blade. Draven's eyes went wide. The beast didn't stop. It drove the Alpha back, tearing at him with claws and teeth. But Draven was fighting with the strength of madness, and he was landing hits, drawing blood. Help me! The Ethron's voice came through their bond. Strained, desperate. Senna didn't think. She grabbed a fallen sword and charged. Draven saw her coming and laughed. Swatted her aside like an insect. Senna hit the wall hard. Her vision went white. When it cleared, Draven was standing over her with his hands around her throat. Weak, he hissed. pathetic. The king sends me weakness and expects. The Ethron's jaws closed on his shoulder. Draven screamed. The beast dragged him away from Senna, shaking him like prey. Blood poured from the wound. The Alpha tried to fight back, but he was weakening. The plague, the battle, the blood loss. It was too much. He collapsed. The Ethron pinned him, looked at Senna. Live or die? Senna coughed, tasting blood. Valdrich wanted him alive, but looking at Draven's mad eyes, at the bodies of his men scattered around them, she knew the truth. This Alpha was already dead. The plague had just taken its time. Let him go, she said hoarsely. The Ethron released him, stepped back. Draven crawled a few feet, then collapsed. His breathing was wet, broken. I was building something, he whispered. A new kingdom, for my pack, for... He died before he could finish. Senna closed her eyes. Behind her, she heard the gates open. Valdrich's guards came through, securing the fortress. The king himself stopped in front of her. Alive, I said. He was dying anyway, Senna said. The plague. Valdrich looked at the Alpha's corpse, at the blood, at his girl and his beast, both of them battered but standing. You fought, he said. I survived. Same thing. He turned to his guards. Burn this place. Leave nothing. As they dragged Senna out, she felt the Ethron press against her side, supporting her. You did well, it said. Senna almost laughed. She'd nearly died, killed a man, even if he was already halfway gone, all to prove she was useful to a king who saw her as a tool. But she was alive, and somehow that was enough. For now. The victory celebration lasted 3 days. Senna spent them locked in her cell, listening to the sounds of feasting drift down from above. Drums, laughter, the clash of cups, and the roar of drunk soldiers singing songs about their king's great triumph. Nobody mentioned the Omega and the beast who'd actually done the killing. The Ethron paced its pit like a caged storm, restless and irritable. Its claws scraped against stone in an endless rhythm that made Senna's teeth ache. They're celebrating us, Senna said through the bars. Her ribs still ached from where Draven had thrown her against the wall. Every breath hurt. Shouldn't that feel good? They're celebrating him, the beast corrected. Its voice in her mind was rough, bitter. We're just the blade he swung. Blades don't get honored. They get sharpened and used again. Senna pressed her forehead against the cold iron. I'm tired. I know. I don't know how much more of this I can take. The Ethron stopped pacing, came to the bars and pressed its massive nose through the gap. Yes, you do. You've been taking it your whole life. This is just a different cage. That's supposed to make me feel better? No. It's supposed to remind you that you're still breathing, still here, still refusing to break. The yellow-green eyes glowed in the darkness. That's worth something. Senna wanted to argue, wanted to scream that surviving wasn't the same as living, that breathing wasn't the same as being free. But the words stuck in her throat because the Ethron was right. She was still here, still alive when everyone, her father, her pack, the auction house, the arena, had expected her to disappear. Maybe that was enough. For now. On the 4th day they moved her. 2 guards came to her cell at dawn. One of them was the older man with the leather-worn face who'd brought her to the kennels that first day. The other was younger, with nervous eyes that wouldn't quite meet hers. King's orders, the older guard said. You're being relocated. Senna's stomach dropped. Where? You'll see. They didn't chain her this time. That was new. Unsettling. They just walked her through the fortress corridors, up 3 flights of stairs, past chambers where courtiers whispered and pointed as she passed. Beast witch, someone muttered. Unnatural thing, another voice hissed. The young guard's hand went to his sword hilt, but the older one shook his head. Keep walking. They stopped at a door Senna had never seen before, heavy oak with iron hinges. The older guard unlocked it and pushed it open. Your new quarters, he said. Senna stepped inside and froze. It was a real room. Not large, but not a cell either. There was a bed, an actual bed with a mattress and blankets, not just a cot on stone. A small table with a chair. A wash basin with clean water. And a window. A real window with glass that let in actual sunlight. This is She turned to the guards. This is a mistake. No mistake. King's orders. The older guard's expression softened slightly. You won the battle. Saved a lot of lives out there. This is your reward. But the Ethron stays in the kennels. His voice went flat again, professional. Can't have the king's weapon getting soft. You'll have access to it during training hours. Otherwise, you stay here. The door closed. The lock clicked. Senna stood in the middle of the room, feeling the sunlight on her skin for the first time in weeks, and wanted to scream. Because this wasn't kindness. This was control dressed up prettier. Valdrich was separating them, weakening the bond, making sure she remembered who was really in charge. She went to the window. It overlooked the training yard 3 stories below. From here, she could see soldiers drilling in formation, servants hurrying between buildings, the massive outer walls that kept the whole kingdom locked in. And beyond the walls, forests, mountains, freedom she'd never tasted. Senna pressed her palm against the glass and felt the Ethron's presence in her mind. Distant now, stretched thin by the stone and distance between them. But still there. Still connected. I feel you. The beast's voice came through, faint and crackling like a dying fire. I'm here, Sina thought back. I'm still here. How long? She didn't know how to answer that. The servants avoided her like she carried plague. When they brought food, real food, not the prison slop she'd been eating, they set the tray down and backed away quickly, making signs against evil with their fingers. When they came to change the linens, they worked in silence with their eyes down, refusing to acknowledge her existence. Senna ate alone, slept alone, spent her days staring out the window and her nights lying awake, feeling the bond with the Ethron pull taut like a rope about to snap. On the 3rd day, she couldn't take it anymore. She waited until the corridor outside her room went quiet, late afternoon, when the fortress was drowsiest. Then she picked the lock with a hairpin she'd stolen from the wash basin. It was a skill her father had beaten her for learning when she was 12, calling it thief's work, omega trash behavior. But it came back easily enough. The lock clicked open. Senna slipped into the corridor and made her way down to the kennels, keeping to the shadows, avoiding the main passages where guards patrolled. The Ethron was waiting when she arrived, pressed against the bars of its pit like it had been standing there for days. You came? It said, and Senna heard the relief in its voice. Of course I came. She unlocked the gate. She still had her handler's key, tucked in her boot where the guards hadn't thought to search. Did you think I'd just leave you down here? I thought he might have convinced you. The beast stepped through the opening and pressed its massive head against her chest. Might have made the cage pretty enough that you'd forget. Never. Senna wrapped her arms around its neck, feeling the warmth, the solidness, the realness of it. I'll never forget what this is. They sat together in the pit, Senna leaning against the Ethron's side while the beast rumbled softly in its chest. Not quite a purr, but close. Something content. Something that hadn't been allowed in 50 years of captivity. Tell me about before, Senna said quietly. Before they caught you. What was it like? The Ethron was silent for a long moment. Then, green. Everything was green. Deep forests where the trees grew so tall you couldn't see the sky. Rivers that sang, mountains that touched the clouds. Its voice grew distant, remembering. I had a pack, real pack. We hunted together, slept in piles under the stars. We were free. What happened to them? The king's grandfather came with his hunters. Silver nets, spelled chains. They killed the others when they tried to protect me. The beast's muscles tensed under Sina's hands. I was young, stupid. I thought I could fight them all. Instead, I watched my family die, and then they dragged me here and put this collar on my neck, and I've been a slave ever since. Sina's throat tightened. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Be angry. The Ethron turned its burning eyes on her. Anger keeps you sharp, keeps you fighting. I don't know how to fight this. You're already fighting. Every day you survive is a fight. Every time you refuse to break is a victory. The beast's tail lashed. They want us to be weapons, tools, things they can use and discard, but we're more than that. And someday, it growled low, someday we'll prove it. Before Senna could respond, she heard footsteps in the corridor above. Multiple boots, coming fast. They know I'm here, she whispered. Go. Now. But go! The Ethron pushed her toward the gate with its nose. I'll be fine. You need to protect yourself. Senna ran. She made it back to her room with seconds to spare, locking the door behind her and diving into bed just as Boots stopped outside. She held her breath, waiting for them to burst in, to drag her back down to a real cell, They walked past. Senna lay there shaking, staring at the ceiling, and realized something that made her blood run cold. They'd known she was gone, known she'd gone to the kennels, but they hadn't stopped her, because Valdrich wanted to see what she'd do, wanted to see how strong the bond really was. She was being tested, every moment, every choice, and she had no idea what happened when she failed. The summons came on the 8th day. A guard arrived at dawn with orders, dress in something decent and report to the war room. Senna didn't own anything decent. The guard brought her a servant's uniform, plain gray wool that hung wrong on her too thin frame, and marched her through the fortress like she was being led to execution. Maybe she was. The war room was at the top of the highest tower, circular, with walls covered in maps and weapons and the heads of creatures she couldn't name. A fire burned in the center, casting everything in red gold light that made shadows dance like living things. 12 people sat around the massive table. All of them stopped talking when Senna walked in. She recognized some of them from the battle, generals with scars like medals, advisors with eyes that calculated the value of human life in gold and strategy. One woman with silver hair and war paint scars sat directly across from Valdrich's empty chair. Maris, the council member who'd questioned Senna's worth during the first meeting. They were all staring at her now. "This is her?" Maris said, looking Senna up and down like she was examining spoiled meat. "This is the great beast speaker who saved our army." "Watch your tone, Maris," Valdrich said from the doorway. He entered without hurrying, moving with that predator grace that made everyone in the room straighten unconsciously. "She's earned her place. By getting lucky once?" Maris's smile was sharp. "Luck runs out, Your Majesty, and when it does, we'll be left with an Omega who can't fight and a beast that might decide we're not worth protecting anymore. The Ethron doesn't make those decisions." Valdrich took his seat at the head of the table. He didn't look at Senna. "It does what it's told, through her. Does it?" A man with an eye patch leaned forward. Commander Roth, Senna remembered, the king's chief military strategist. "Because from what I saw on the battlefield, that beast has opinions. And it's getting more opinionated the longer it spends with her." All eyes turned to Senna again. She stood at the very end of the table. There was an empty chair, the spot reserved for servants and petitioners, and forced herself to meet their gazes. "The Ethron fights when I ask it to. It's never refused a command." "Yet," Maris said. "Ever," Senna corrected, her voice harder than she intended. "I don't abuse it. I don't beat it. I treat it like a partner instead of a slave. That's why it listens." The room went dead silent. Valdrich's fingers drummed once on the table, slowly. A warning. "Sit down," he said quietly. Senna sat. "We're here to discuss the northern border," Valdrich continued, his voice back to that cold, controlled tone. "Reports came in this morning. The Krell tribes are gathering, building an army." Commander Roth spread a map across the table. "Here, in the frozen wastes, they've been recruiting from every northern clan, offering them spoils, territory, revenge. The scouts estimate 500 warriors, maybe more." "What do they want?" another counselor asked. Woman, younger, with ink-stained fingers, the king's intelligence advisor. "They're calling it a holy war." Valdrich's jaw tightened. His eyes flicked to Senna for just a moment. "They say our kingdom is cursed, that the Ethron is an abomination against nature that needs to be destroyed." The word hit Senna like a physical blow. Abomination. The same word her father had screamed at her when he'd caught her talking to the wolves in the forest. The same word the pack elders had whispered when they'd voted to exile her. She dug her nails into her palms under the table and said nothing. "Let them come," Maris said, leaning back in her chair. "We crushed the rogue Alpha. We'll crush them too." "With what army?" Roth demanded. "Our forces are scattered across 3 territories. The southern campaign drained our resources and our manpower. We're vulnerable, spread too thin. We have the Ethron." Everyone looked at Senna. She felt her throat close up, felt the weight of their expectations, their dismissal, their calculation of her worth pressing down like stones. "One beast," Roth said slowly, "against 500 trained warriors who are specifically coming to kill it. Those aren't good odds. It's killed more than that over the years, Valdrich said. His voice was mild, but Senna heard the edge underneath. Haven't you, girl? Senna forced herself to look at him, at those winter ice eyes that never showed mercy. The Ethron has fought for you for 50 years. How many has it killed in that time? Thousands. He said it like he was commenting on the weather. And how many handlers did it kill before me? Silence. Thick and uncomfortable. Valdrich's smile was a razor blade. Are you suggesting the beast won't fight? I'm suggesting you can't just point it at an army and expect it to win. Senna's hands were shaking under the table, but she kept her voice steady. It's powerful, yes, but it's not invincible. It can be hurt. Killed even, if they come prepared with the right weapons, the right magic. Then you'll make sure it doesn't die. Valdrich stood, walking around the table with slow, deliberate steps. Senna tracked him with her eyes, feeling hunted. That's your job. Your only job. Keep it alive. Keep it fighting. Keep it useful. He stopped behind her chair. Senna felt his hand settle on her shoulder, heavy, possessive, a threat wrapped in flesh and bone. And if I can't, she whispered, then I'll find someone who can. His fingers tightened just enough to hurt. And you'll go back to being worthless, or dead, whichever is more convenient. Senna's spine went rigid. Something hot and sharp flared in her chest. Not fear this time, something hotter. I was never worthless, she said, loud enough for the whole room to hear. You just didn't know how to use me. The room went dead silent. Valdrich's grip tightened until Senna thought her collarbone might crack. She bit down on a gasp, refusing to give him the satisfaction. Then he laughed. Actually, laughed. Fire, he said, releasing her and returning to his seat. Good. You'll need it. He looked at the council. The Krell attack in 2 weeks. She has until then to prepare the Ethron. Train it, sharpen it, make it ready for war. Alone? Senna's voice came out hoarse. You're the handler. His smile was ice and cruelty. Handle it. The meeting continued. Strategies, supply lines, defensive positions. But Senna stopped listening. Her mind was already racing ahead, calculating survival the way she'd learned to do her whole life. 2 weeks to prepare for a battle they couldn't win. 2 weeks to turn a traumatized beast into an unstoppable war machine. 2 weeks to figure out how to save both their lives. When they finally dismissed her, Sina went straight to the kennels. The Ethron was pacing when she arrived, its claws leaving grooves in the stone floor. It saw her and immediately came to the bars. You smell like fear and rage, it said. We're going to war. Senna unlocked the gate and stepped inside. The beast pressed against her immediately, a wall of warmth and muscle. Against 500 warriors? In 2 weeks. The Ethron's ears flicked back. How many do we have? 300, maybe. That's bad. It gets worse. Senna pressed her face against the beast's neck, breathing in the smell of earth and wild things. They're coming specifically to kill you. The shamans say you're an abomination that needs to be cleansed. The Ethron went very still. Cleansed how? Fire! The beast's whole body shuddered. Senna felt its terror bleed through their bond, raw and primal and choking. I hate fire, it whispered in her mind. Hate it. They used it on me when I was young, when I fought the collar, burned me until I stopped screaming. Senna's hands clenched in the thick fur. I won't let them burn you. You can't promise that. I can try. Trying gets you killed. Then we'll die trying. Senna pulled back to look the beast in the eye. But we're not going down easy, and we're not going down alone. The Ethron stared at her for a long moment. Then something shifted in its expression, something fierce and feral and unbreakable. All right, it said. Then we train like we're already dead, and make them regret every moment they spent planning this. They spent the next 2 weeks in hell. Valdrich gave them access to everything. The full training yard, weapons, tactical maps, even a small library of military strategy. He assigned them Gareth, an old soldier who'd lost his left arm in a border skirmish 20 years back and had been training warriors ever since. Gareth took one look at Senna and the Ethron and spat on the ground. You want to survive a pitched battle, he said without preamble. You need to understand how armies move, how they think, where they're weak. He used stones on the dirt to demonstrate. Standard formation. Infantry here in the center, shields locked. Archers behind them, raining death. Cavalry on the flanks, waiting to sweep in and crush anyone who breaks through. Your job, he pointed at Sina and the Ithron with his remaining hand, is to shatter that formation, create chaos, make them scatter like rats. How? Sina asked. Seni asked. Hit the center hard and fast. Take out the commander if you can see him. Armies without leaders fall apart. They panic. They run. They make mistakes. He squinted at the Ithron, measuring. Can that thing move fast while carrying weight? Senna looked at the beast. They'd never tried. I can carry you, the Ithron said through their bond, but you'll need to learn how to hold on without strangling me. We'll practice, Senna said aloud. They practiced. Senna climbed onto the Ithron's back. It felt blasphemous at first, like riding something holy, and gripped the thick fur at its neck. The beast took 3 steps forward and then broke into a run. Senna lasted exactly 4 seconds before she fell off and hit the dirt hard enough to knock the air from her lungs. Gareth laughed. It was a harsh, barking sound. Again. They tried again and again and again. Senna hit the ground so many times she lost count. Her whole body became one giant bruise. Her hands bled from gripping too hard. Her legs screamed from the effort of staying mounted. But slowly, painfully, frustratingly slowly, she learned. Learned how to move with the Ithron instead of against it. Learned where to grip without choking. Learned how to shift her weight when the beast turned. How to duck low against its neck when it jumped. How to sense the rhythm of its stride and match her breathing to it. By the end of the first week, she could stay mounted through a full sprint without falling. Not terrible, Gareth said, which Senna was learning was high praise from him. Now we work on combat positioning. He brought out practice dummies dressed in leather armor and arranged them in formation. The Ithron tore through them with savage efficiency, reducing them to shreds in seconds. Gareth shook his head. You're attacking like a wild animal. Effective against 1 or 2 targets, but predictable. Armored infantry will lock shields and hold the line. You can't just charge through that wall of steel and expect to survive. Then how? The Ithron asked through Senna. Gareth moved a dummy into position, showing them the shield wall from different angles. You need to be smarter. Go low, under the shields, take out their legs, or go high, jump over the formation, hit them from behind where they're not expecting it, keep them guessing, never do the same thing twice. They practiced new attack patterns. The Ithron was a frighteningly fast learner, its movements becoming more precise, more tactical, more devastating. And through their bond, Senna started to understand not just what the beast was doing, but why. She could feel its battle instincts, its territorial rage, its calculating intelligence as it analyzed each scenario Gareth threw at them. You're thinking together, Gareth observed one afternoon, watching them work through a complex flanking maneuver. That's unusual. Is it bad? Senna asked, breathless from the exertion. Don't know yet, but it's definitely not normal. He scratched his chin with his remaining hand. Most handlers just give orders. The beast obeys or it doesn't. But you two, he gestured between them. You're coordinating, anticipating each other. That's pack behavior. Senna felt the Ithron's agreement rumble through their connection. He's right, the beast said. We're becoming pack, real pack. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like the first solid ground she'd stood on in years. They trained from dawn until dark. Combat scenarios, escape routes, what to do if they got separated, how to signal each other across a battlefield. Gareth pushed them relentlessly, never satisfied, always finding new weaknesses to exploit. You're too slow on the left turn, he'd bark. You telegraph that jump. Your dismount is sloppy. Again. Again. Senna collapsed into bed each night so exhausted she couldn't even dream, but when she woke, she felt stronger, faster, more certain. The Ithron was changing too, growing leaner, harder, more focused. The scared, beaten creature from the kennels was disappearing, replaced by something sharp and deadly and unbreakable. On the 10th day, Valdrich came to watch their training. He stood at the edge of the yard with his arms crossed, face expressionless, while Senna and the Ithron ran through their most complex drill, a 3-stage assault that required perfect timing and absolute trust between them. They executed it flawlessly. When they finished, both of them breathing hard, Valdrich walked onto the field. Impressive, he said. The word carried no warmth. You've made real progress. Senna slid off the Ethron's back, landing on shaky legs. We're ready. Are you? He studied her with those ice-blue eyes. Because the Krell won't be practice dummies. They'll be trying to kill you both, specifically with prejudice. I know. And you're still willing to fight? Senna wanted to say no. Wanted to scream that she didn't owe him anything, that she'd rather run into the forest and take her chances with wolves and winter than die for his cursed kingdom. But she looked at the Ethron standing beside her, at the collar still locked around its neck, at the scars covering its body, and she knew the truth. They didn't have a choice. Not yet. Yes, she said. Valdrich nodded slowly. Then he did something unexpected. He pulled a knife from his belt and held it out to her. Take it. Senna stared at the weapon. It was beautiful, simple design, but the blade was sharp enough to catch sunlight like water. The handle was wrapped in worn leather that would fit a smaller hand perfectly. Why? She asked. Because you'll need a weapon. He waited until she took it, then his expression shifted, something almost like respect flickering across his face. And because I'm starting to think you might actually survive this. The knife felt good in her hand. Balanced. Real. Thank you, she said, hating how the words tasted like surrender. Don't thank me yet. Valdrich turned to leave, then stopped and looked back. His voice dropped lower. There's something else you should know. The Krell aren't just coming for the kingdom. They're not interested in territory or spoils. They're coming for the Ethron specifically. Senna's blood went cold. You said that already. I didn't tell you why. His eyes were hard. Their shamans have been having visions, dreams. They say the Ethron is a corrupted spirit, something that was once pure but has been twisted by captivity and cruelty into an abomination. They believe it's poisoning the land just by existing here. That's insane. Maybe. Maybe not. Valdrich's jaw tightened. Either way, they plan to cleanse it, purify it with sacred fire until nothing remains but ash and memory. Senna felt the Ethron's terror spike through their bond. They can't, she whispered. They'll try. Valdrich's voice was flat, empty. So when you fight them, understand what's at stake. It's not just a battle, it's an execution. Theirs or yours. He started walking away again. Make sure it's theirs. Senna stood there holding the knife, watching the king disappear into the fortress, and felt something shift inside her chest. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about proving that she and the Ethron deserved to exist. The Krell came on the 14th day, exactly as predicted. Scouts spotted them at dawn, a mass of warriors in leather and bone armor, carrying torches that burned with unnatural blue fire. They moved across the frozen plain like a single organism, chanting in a language that made Senna's bones ache just hearing it. Valdrich assembled his forces outside the fortress walls. 300 soldiers in tight formation, infantry center, archers on the ramparts, cavalry in reserve. It looked impressive until you counted the enemy and realized they were outnumbered nearly 2-1. And in the center of Valdrich's formation, sitting mounted on the Ethron's back, was Senna. She wore light armor Gareth had scrounged for her, boiled leather that fit badly, but was better than nothing. The knife Valdrich had given her was strapped to her thigh. Her hands were white-knuckled in the Ethron's fur. Around her, soldiers muttered prayers and checked their weapons. Nobody looked at her. Nobody spoke to her. She was a ghost among the living, there but not acknowledged, necessary but not wanted. The Ethron shifted beneath her, muscles coiled like springs. Nervous, its voice rumbled in her mind. Terrified, Senna admitted. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. The beast's ears swiveled, tracking the approaching army. Stay close to me. Don't try to be a hero. I'm not a hero. Exactly. The Ethron's mental voice softened slightly. So survive. That's all that matters. Survive. Valdrich rode up on a massive black warhorse, wearing full-plate armor that made him look like a creature forged from darkness and winter. His sword was drawn, catching the weak morning light. Here's the plan, he said, loud enough for the nearby soldiers to hear. We hold the line, let them exhaust themselves trying to break through. When they commit fully, Senna and the Ethron punch through their center and take out their commander. He pointed across the field at a figure riding at the head of the Krell force, A massive man covered in white furs, wielding a hammer that crackled with blue lightning. Without their shaman chief, they'll break. And if they don't? Cinna asked, her voice barely audible. Valdrich looked at her. His eyes were empty. Then we all die together. But at least we'll have company in hell. Before she could respond, a horn blew across the frozen plain. The Krell charged. They came like an avalanche of flesh and fury, screaming war cries in that bone-aching language. The torches blazed brighter. At their head, the shaman chief raised his lightning hammer and bellowed something that made the very air shudder. Now! Valdrich roared. The Ethron exploded forward. The world became noise and blood and chaos. Senna held on with everything she had as the beast tore through the enemy lines, claws ripping through armor like paper, jaws crushing bones with sounds that would haunt her nightmares forever. Spears thrust at them from all sides. An arrow scraped past her cheek, drawing blood. Something heavy, a thrown axe maybe, slammed into her shoulder and nearly knocked her off. She gripped tighter, pressing low against the Ethron's neck, making herself as small a target as possible. There, the beast snarled in her mind. The shaman chief. I see him. Senna looked up through the chaos. The Krell leader was maybe 50 yards away, surrounded by bodyguards, the lightning hammer raised high. Around him, shamans chanted and wove magic that made the air shimmer like heat waves. Go! She shouted. The Ethron charged straight at him. The shaman chief saw them coming. His lips pulled back in a savage, fanatic grin. He swung the hammer in a wide arc. The Ethron dodged left. Barely. The hammer hit the frozen ground and exploded in a blast of blue fire that turned snow to steam and flesh to charcoal. Heat washed over them like a physical blow. The Ethron yelped, its fur singeing. Senna smelled burning. Can't get close, the beast gasped through their bond. The fire. It's not natural. It burns worse than regular flame. Then we improvise. Senna pulled the knife from her thigh. It was a stupid plan. Suicidal. But they were out of time and options. She waited until the Ethron circled past the shaman chief again, close enough to see the madness in his eyes. Then she jumped. Senna hit the ground rolling, came up running through the press of bodies, and drove the knife into the back of the shaman chief's knee with every ounce of strength she had. He screamed and went down. The Ethron was on him half a second later, massive jaws closing on his throat. The lightning hammer fell from his hands. The blue fire died. For one perfect, crystalline moment, the entire battlefield went silent. Then someone screamed. Then everyone screamed. The Krell warriors saw their leader's body on the ground, saw the beast standing over him with blood dripping from its jaws. And they broke. They ran. Scattered in every direction, throwing down weapons, abandoning their formations, trampling each other in blind panic to get away from the monster that had killed their unkillable chief. Valdrich's cavalry chased them down. The infantry held position, killing anyone who came too close. It was over in minutes. Senna stood in the middle of the carnage, covered in blood that wasn't hers, shaking so hard her teeth rattled. The knife was still in her hand. She looked down at it and saw red. So much red. The Ethron limped over to her, favoring its left foreleg. Its fur was burned in patches, showing raw flesh underneath. Blood dripped from a dozen wounds. We did it, it said, and Senna heard the disbelief in its voice. We actually survived. Senna collapsed against the beast's side, her legs giving out. Don't sound so surprised. I'm always surprised when we survive. The Ethron lowered its head, pressing its nose against her hair. You jumped off. Into the middle of them. You could have been killed. We would have been killed if I didn't. I know, still. The beast's voice softened. Thank you. Around them, soldiers were cheering, chanting. Senna barely heard it. All she could hear was her own heartbeat. Too fast, too loud, too alive. They'd won. They'd survived. Against all odds, against everything, they were still breathing. Valdrich found them as the sun climbed higher, burning off the morning frost. The battlefield was being cleared, bodies sorted, wounded treated, weapons collected. He dismounted from his warhorse and walked over to where Senna sat against the Ethron's side. He looked at her for a long moment. Something shifted in his expression, something that might have been respect, might have been calculation, might have been both. You jumped off, he said. I had to. You could have been killed. Probably should have been. We would have been killed if I didn't. Cinna met his eyes. The fire. It was too strong. The Ethron couldn't get close. So you went instead. Valdrich crouched down to her level. Do you understand what you did today? Survived? More than that. He gestured at the battlefield, at the soldiers, at the fortress in the distance. You proved that an Omega can stand in the middle of a war and change the outcome. You proved that the Ethron, the creature my family has been trying to control for 50 years, trusts you enough to let you risk your life. Cinna's throat tightened. I didn't do it to prove anything. I did it to stay alive. Maybe, but the result is the same. He stood. Take them both to the healers, and get that beast proper quarters. It's earned better than a pit. You said that before. This time I mean it. Valdrich's expression hardened. Because now everyone knows what you're worth, and valuable things need to be protected. The way he said protected made Cinna's skin crawl. As the guards led her and the Ethron away, she heard the soldiers talking. Did you see her jump? Straight into the middle of them. Crazy Omega Witch saved us all. The beast, too. Never seen it fight like that. They're like pack. Real pack. Cinna didn't know how to feel about any of it. She wasn't a hero, wasn't brave. She'd just been too terrified to think clearly, too desperate to survive to care about looking foolish. But maybe that's all bravery ever was. The healers patched up both her and the Ethron. Salves for burns, stitches for cuts, bandages for everything else. They gave Cinna something bitter to drink that made the pain fade to a dull throb. Then they took her back to her room and locked the door. Cinna lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling, too exhausted to move, too wired to sleep. She could still feel the Ethron through their bond, stronger now, clearer, like a second heartbeat in her chest. Are you all right? The beast asked. I don't know, Cinna thought back. Are you? I'm alive. You're alive. That's more than I expected. Same. She must have fallen asleep eventually because she woke to someone knocking on her door. The sun had set. Shadows filled her room. Who is it? She called out, her voice hoarse. Someone who wants to talk. Cinna recognized the voice. Maris. She dragged herself out of bed and opened the door. The silver-haired counselor stood in the hallway, alone, wearing dark clothes that blended into the shadows. We need to talk, Maris said without preamble. Cinna stepped aside. The woman came in and closed the door behind her. You made quite an impression today, Maris said, leaning against the wall. The soldiers are calling you the Beast Rider, the Omega who fights like an alpha. They're writing songs already. I'm not. I know what you are. Maris's sharp eyes pinned her. And I know what you're not. You're not loyal to Valdrich. You're just surviving, using whatever tools you have to stay alive one more day. Cinna's hands clenched. If you're here to threaten me, I'm here to offer you a choice. Maris pushed off the wall and moved closer. The king is using you as a weapon, a tool. But tools can be turned, girl, and I think you're smart enough to know that. What do you want? I want you to listen. That's all. Just listen. Maris sat on the edge of the bed, uninvited. Valdrich is strong, ruthless, but he's not invincible. His rule is built on fear and the Ethron's power. But now, she smiled, it wasn't friendly. Now that power is shared with you, which means his control is shared too. Cinna's throat went tight. I'm not interested in politics. You don't have to be interested, you just have to be smart. Maris stood. When the time comes, and it will come, girl, trust me. Remember this conversation. Remember that you have options. Remember that there are people in this kingdom who would see you as more than just the king's attack dog. She walked to the door, then paused with her hand on the handle. One more thing. The bond you have with the Ethron? It's getting stronger, deeper. The healers noticed it. So did Valdrich, that kind of bond. She looked back at Cinna. That kind of bond can't be controlled, can't be predicted, and that terrifies him. Good, Cinna said before she could stop herself. Maris laughed. Yes, good. Hold on to that fire, Beast Rider. You're going to need it. Then she was gone. Cinna stood alone in her room, heart racing, mind spinning. Options, choices, freedom. Lies, probably. Manipulation wrapped up in pretty words. But maybe... She went to the window and looked out at the fortress, at the walls, at the forest beyond. Somewhere out there was the life she'd never gotten to live, the freedom she'd never tasted. And somewhere below her, in quarters that were better than a pit but still a cage, was the only family she'd ever chosen. "Are you still awake?" she thought at the Ethron. "Always." "You? Can't sleep." "The counselor?" "You heard. I hear everything you hear, feel everything you feel." A pause. "The bond is getting stronger. You feel it too, don't you?" Sina pressed her palm against the cold glass. "Yes. Is that bad?" "I don't know. Maybe. Probably." Sina closed her eyes. "But I don't hate it." "Good," the Ethron rumbled in her mind, "because neither do I." They sat in comfortable silence, connected across stone and distance, packed in a way that defied every law of this cursed kingdom. And Senna realized something that made her chest ache. She wasn't alone anymore. For the first time in her entire worthless, rejected, cursed life, she had someone who saw her, really saw her, not as a tool or a slave or an abomination, just as Sina. And that was worth more than freedom, at least for now. Footsteps in the corridor pulled her from her thoughts. Heavy boots, multiple people, coming fast. Senna's heart jumped into her throat. She backed away from the window just as her door slammed open. Valdrich stood there with 6 guards, his face carved from stone in winter. "Get up," he said. "What's—" "You're being moved, both of you." Ice flooded Senna's veins. "Where?" "Somewhere I can keep an eye on you." His jaw was tight, his eyes hard. "You've proven your value today, which means you're no longer expendable. Which means—" He stepped into the room, filling it with his presence. "You're mine to protect, whether you like it or not." The guards moved forward with chains. The Ethron's roar echoed up from below, rage and fear bleeding through their bond so strongly Senna gasped. "Don't," she said, to herself, to the beast, to the guards. "Don't fight this." Because they couldn't. Not now. Not yet. They'd won the battle, but they were still trapped in the war. Valdrich's smile was ice and triumph and possession. "Smart girl, you're learning your place." As the guards led her out, as they brought chains for the Ethron and dragged it from its new quarters back toward the deep fortress, Senna felt something crack and reform inside her chest. Not breaking, hardening. They'd survived the arena, survived the rogue Alpha, survived a war. And now they were more trapped than ever, valuable enough to be watched, dangerous enough to be controlled, necessary enough to be kept alive, but never, ever free. Senna looked back at Valdrich as they descended into the fortress depths. His eyes met hers, and she saw it there. Fear, real fear, hidden under all that ice and control. He was afraid of her, afraid of what she was becoming, and that, Senna realized, was the first real weapon she'd ever owned. They took her deeper than the kennels this time. Down stone stairs that spiraled into the earth, through corridors so old the walls wept moisture, past iron doors that hadn't been opened in generations. The air grew colder with every step, thicker, like breathing through wet wool. Senna counted the turns, memorizing the path the way she'd learned to do in her father's house when he'd lock her in the cellar for speaking to the rats. Always map your prison. Always know the way out, even when there isn't one. The Ethron walked beside her in chains, silver-threaded rope that glowed faintly with spelled runes. Its claws scraped against stone, the sound echoing in the darkness. Through their bond, Senna felt its rage and fear bleeding together into something that tasted like copper. Where are they taking us? Somewhere worse, Senna thought back. Can't get much worse. She didn't answer because they both knew that was a lie. It could always get worse. Valdrich walked ahead of them, torch in hand, not looking back. His shoulders were tense, his breathing controlled. He was angry about something, Senna realized. Maybe afraid. Hard to tell with ice like that. They stopped at a door 3 times the size of the others. Black iron reinforced with silver bands, covered in runes that hurt to look at directly. "Open it," Valdrich said to the guards. It took 4 of them to turn the lock. The door groaned open, revealing a chamber beyond that made Sina's stomach drop. It was enormous, easily the size of the training yard above. But instead of open space, it was divided into sections by iron bars, cages within cages. And in the center, raised on a stone platform, was a throne. No, not a throne. A chair with restraints. "What is this?" Cinna's voice came out smaller than she wanted. Insurance. Valdrich finally looked at her. His face was unreadable in the torchlight. You've proven you can fight. You've proven the beast will follow you. Now you need to prove you can be controlled. Ice flooded her veins. You said we earned better quarters. I lied. He gestured to the guards. Put her in the chair. Put the beast in the reinforced cage. No. Hands grabbed Senna from behind. She fought, kicking and clawing, but there were too many of them. They dragged her to the platform and slammed her into the chair. Iron cuffs snapped around her wrists, her ankles, her throat. The Ithron roared and lunged against its chains. 3 guards went down under its fury before they managed to drive it back with silver-tipped spears. Stop, Senna screamed. Please stop. Make it stop, Valdrich said calmly. Control it, or I will. Senna looked at the beast, at the blood running from the spear wounds, at the madness in its yellow-green eyes. Through their bond, she felt its desperation, its need to protect her overriding everything else. Please, she begged through their connection, please stop. They'll kill you. They'll hurt you. They'll kill you. Senna choked on the words. I need you alive, please. The Ethron went still, not calm, just controlled, leashed by her voice and the bond between them. The guards forced it into the largest cage and locked 3 separate doors. Valdrich walked up to Cinna's chair, looked down at her with those winter eyes. Good, he said. You can control it even under duress. That's what I needed to know. Why are you doing this? Cinna's voice cracked. We won. We did what you wanted. We saved your kingdom. You proved you're useful. That's not the same as trustworthy. He crouched down to her level. Maris came to see you tonight. I know because I told her to. I wanted to see what you'd do when offered a choice. Senna's blood turned to ice. You set me up. I tested you. Valdrich's jaw tightened. And you passed. You didn't accept her offer. You didn't promise her anything. You just listened. Which tells me you're smart enough to survive, but not stupid enough to think you have real options yet. Then why chain me? Because smart people get ideas. He stood. And I need you focused on one thing, keeping that beast under control. Not plotting, not scheming, not dreaming about freedom you'll never have. He walked toward the door, then paused. You'll stay here for 3 days. The beast stays caged. You stay restrained. Food and water will be provided. At the end of 3 days, if you're both still controllable, you'll be returned to proper quarters. His eyes met hers. If not, well, I'll deal with that when it happens. Wait. The door slammed shut. The lock turned. Darkness swallowed everything except the faint glow of the runes. Senna sat in the chair, iron cutting into her wrists, and felt something inside her finally break. Not her will, something deeper, some last piece of hope that maybe, somehow, survival could eventually lead to freedom. He'll never let us go, she thought at the Ethron. I know, the beast rumbled back, its voice heavy with exhaustion. We're his weapons, his property, forever. I know. Senna closed her eyes and let the tears come. Silent, hot, useless. The first day passed in a blur of hunger and thirst and pain. They gave her water twice, thin soup once. Not enough to sustain, just enough to keep her breathing. The Ethron got raw meat thrown into its cage. It didn't eat, just paced and snarled and pressed against the bars trying to reach Senna. You need to eat, she told it. You need to be free, it shot back. That's not happening. Then neither is eating. By the second day, Senna's vision was starting to blur. The restraints had rubbed her wrists raw. Her throat ached from the iron collar. Every muscle in her body screamed from being locked in one position. She drifted in and out of consciousness, her mind wandering to strange places. She saw her mother, the woman who'd died bringing her into the world. Wondered if she'd known what kind of life she was giving her daughter. If she'd have made different choices if she'd known. She saw her father's face the day he'd sold her. Empty, relieved, like he was finally getting rid of a burden he'd carried too long. She saw the auction platform, the arena, Draven's mad eyes, the Krell commander's blood on her hands, and she saw Valdrich over and over, those ice-blue eyes calculating her worth in gold and violence. Wake up, the Ethron's voice pulled her back. Don't slip away. Stay with me. Too tired. I don't care. Stay. With me. Sina forced her eyes open. The chamber swam into focus. dark except for the rune light, cold except for the distant warmth of the Ethron's presence in her mind. "Why?" she asked. "What's the point? Because I've been here for 50 years and I never had anyone who cared if I lived or died." The beast's voice was raw, honest. "And I'm not going back to that, which means you don't get to give up." "I'm not giving up. You're slipping away. I can feel it, like you're letting go of something." A pause. "Don't. Please. I need you." The words hit Senna harder than any physical blow. Need. When was the last time anyone had needed her for anything except dying? She took a breath, then another, forced herself to focus. "Okay," she thought. "Okay. I'm here." Good. Relief flooded through their bond. Now stay that way. On the third day, something changed. Footsteps in the corridor, multiple sets, moving fast. The door burst open and Valdrich strode in with his full guard. But his expression was different now, tight, focused, urgent. "Release her!" he barked. The guards unlocked the restraints. Senna collapsed forward, would have hit the ground if someone hadn't caught her. Her legs wouldn't hold her weight. Her wrists were bleeding. "What's happening?" she managed to croak. "Border scouts just reported in." Valdrich's voice was clipped, controlled. "The Eastern Territories are under attack, not Krell this time. Something worse." He gestured and one of the guards brought forward a map, laid it on the ground. Valdrich pointed to a region marked in red. 3 villages burned to the ground in the last week. Survivors say it's not human, not pack, something else, something old. Senna's mind struggled to focus through the hunger and exhaustion. "What does this have to do with us?" "The tracks they found," Valdrich looked at the Ethron's cage. "They match. Whatever's out there is the same species as the beast, same size, same killing pattern." Through their bond, Senna felt the Ethron go absolutely still. "No," its voice whispered in her mind. "It can't be." "What?" Senna asked aloud. The beast pressed against the bars. Its eyes were wide, desperate. "My sibling, the one I thought died when they captured me." Its voice cracked. "It's alive. It's been alive this whole time." Senna's chest tightened. "You had family?" "What's it saying?" Valdrich demanded. Senna looked at him, saw the calculation in his eyes, saw what was coming before he said it. "No," she said. "Absolutely not. You don't know what I'm going to say. You want us to hunt it, kill it." Her voice was shaking now, anger burning through the exhaustion. "You want us to murder the only family it has left. I want you to stop whatever that thing is before it destroys half my kingdom." Valdrich's jaw was set. 3 villages, Senna, hundreds dead, children, families, and it's heading this way. Then send your army. I did. 20 soldiers went after it last night. None came back. He crouched down to her level. "The only thing that can stop a beast like that is another beast. Which means you and the Ethron are the only chance those people have." Senna looked at the Ethron, felt its anguish through their bond, so deep and raw it threatened to pull her under. "I can't," the beast said. "I can't kill my own blood." "I know," Senna thought back. "She says no," Senna told Valdrich. His expression went cold. Then the deal changes. He pulled something from his belt, a small vial filled with dark liquid. "This is shadow venom, extracted from cave spiders in the deep mountains. 1 drop will kill the Ethron in less than an hour. Painful, slow, irreversible." Senna's blood froze. "You wouldn't." "I would. I will. Unless you both do exactly what I say." He held up the vial so it caught the rune light. "You go to the Eastern Territories, you track that creature, and you put it down, permanently. And if we refuse?" Valdrich's smile was ice and cruelty. "Then I pour this down the beast's throat and find another way to solve my problem. Maybe I'll force bond another handler. Maybe I'll just burn the Eastern Territories and everyone in them to ash. Either way, the Ethron dies, and you get to live knowing you killed it through your stubbornness." Senna felt the world tilt, felt every option collapse into one impossible choice. Save strangers by killing the Ethron's family, or save the Ethron's family and watch it die in agony. "What do I do?" she begged the beast. The Ethron was silent for a long moment. Then, "You let me make this choice. Not him, not you. Me. But it's my sibling, my family, my decision. The beast's voice was steady now, resolved. Open my cage. Senna looked at Valdrich. Let it out. Make your choice first. I can't make this choice. It's not mine to make. Senna's voice was hard, final. You want an answer? Ask the beast yourself. Valdrich's eyes narrowed, but after a moment he nodded to the guards. They unlocked the Ethron's cage. The beast stepped out slowly. Its muscles were tense. Its eyes were locked on Valdrich. Well, the king said, what's it going to be? The Ethron looked at Senna, then back at Valdrich. Then it spoke, not in Senna's mind, out loud. In a voice like grinding stone in winter wind, words formed from a throat never meant for human language but forcing them anyway. I will go. The chamber went silent. Valdrich's eyes went wide. It can talk. Apparently, Senna was just as shocked. The Ethron moved closer to the king, lowered its massive head until they were eye to eye. I will hunt. I will find. But I decide, if it dies. Each word was a struggle, painful. You want my family dead? You kill yourself. Not hide. Behind her. Valdrich stared at the beast. For the first time since Senna had met him, he looked genuinely unsettled. Agreed, he said finally. You find it. You assess the threat. If it can be stopped without killing, you stop it. If not, he held up the vial again. This goes back in my pocket unused. But if you fail, if more people die because you hesitated, I'll use it, and I'll make her watch. The Ithron's lips pulled back in a snarl, but it nodded. Good. Valdrich stepped back. You leave at dawn, both of you. Gareth goes with you to track and report back. You have 1 week. He walked toward the door, then paused. And Senna, this is your last test. Pass it, and maybe I'll start thinking about that freedom you want so badly. Fail it. He looked back at her. And I'll make sure neither of you ever sees daylight again. The door closed behind him. Senna and the Ethron stood alone in the dark chamber, both of them shaking. You can talk, Senna said through their bond. You've always been able to talk. Not always. Only recently. The beast's mental voice was softer than its spoken one. The bond with you, it changed something, opened something, made me more than I was. Why didn't you tell me? Because that kind of power is dangerous. If Valdrich had known I could speak, it shook its massive head. He would have seen me as more of a threat, would have tried to break me sooner. Senna understood. Another secret. Another survival strategy in a kingdom built on control. What are we going to do? She whispered aloud. Find my sibling. Hope it remembers me. Hope it hasn't gone completely mad from 50 years alone in the wild. The Ethron's voice cracked on the last word. And pray we don't have to make the choice Valdrich wants us to make. They left at dawn. Senna rode the Ethron with Gareth following on horseback, along with 6 soldiers as escort. They traveled east through forests that got progressively darker and wilder, past abandoned villages and burned farmland. The first body they found was 3 miles from the fortress. A farmer. Ripped apart so thoroughly they could barely identify what was left. That's not hunting, Gareth said, studying the carnage with a professional eye. That's rage. The Ethron sniffed the ground. When it lifted its head, its eyes were glowing brighter than Senna had ever seen. My sibling, it confirmed. But wrong. The scent is wrong. Wrong how? Senna asked. Sick, corrupted, like poison in the blood. They followed the trail, found 2 more bodies, then a whole family slaughtered in their home. The soldiers were getting nervous. One of them, a young man barely older than Senna, kept making signs against evil. This thing's cursed, he muttered. Demon-touched. Shut up, Gareth snapped. Stay focused. But even the old soldier looked unsettled. They made camp that night in a clearing. The Ethron refused to leave Senna's side, pressing close, its whole body tense. I can feel it, the beast said. We're getting close. What if we can't stop it? Then we make a choice. The Ethron's voice was heavy. Either way, this ends tomorrow. Senna barely slept. Every sound in the dark forest made her jump. Every shadow looked like a monster waiting to strike. When dawn came, Gareth woke them with urgency in his voice. Fresh tracks, leading east, less than an hour old. They followed. The trail led them to a ravine, steep walls on both sides, a narrow path through the middle. The perfect place for an ambush. The Ethron stopped at the entrance, ears flat against its head. "It's here," it said, waiting. "Everyone hold position," Gareth ordered the soldiers. "Senna, you and the beast go in alone. We'll cover the exit." Senna slid off the Ethron's back. Her hands were shaking. The knife Valdrich had given her felt too light, useless. They walked into the ravine together. The creature stepped out from behind a boulder 50 feet ahead. It was the same size as the Ethron, but where the Ethron's fur was black, this one's was gray. Where the Ethron's eyes burned yellow-green, this one's were solid white, blind or mad or both. And its body was covered in scars. Not battle scars, something worse. Deliberate cuts, ritual markings, the kind of damage that came from torture. The Ethron made a sound Senna had never heard before, part whine, part sob. "Sister," it said aloud. The word came out broken. The gray beast's head snapped toward them, its white eyes fixed on nothing and everything. Then it spoke, in the same grinding stone voice. "Brother, they took you, chained you, made you slave. Yes, they hurt you. Yes." The gray beast's lips pulled back, showing teeth stained with old blood. "I escaped, lived, survived, but they hunted me, hurt me, tried to break me." Its whole body was trembling. "So I hurt them back, hurt everyone, everything, until pain is all I am." The Ethron took a step forward. "It doesn't have to be. You can stop. Come with us. We can—" "No." The gray beast snarled. "You still wear collar, still serve humans, still betrayer." "I'm trying to survive." "You're already dead." The gray beast's voice rose to a roar. "You just don't know it yet, but I can fix that. I can free you, free us both." It charged. The Ethron met it halfway. The two beasts collided with a sound like thunder, claws, teeth, blood. Senna scrambled back, pressing against the ravine wall. The soldiers at the entrance were shouting, but she couldn't hear them over the sounds of the fighting. The gray beast was faster, meaner. It fought like something with nothing to lose, all fury and hate and pain-given teeth. But the Ethron fought like something protecting pack. They were matched. Perfectly. Horribly. Blood sprayed the ravine walls. Senna watched in frozen horror as they tore at each other, both of them screaming in rage and grief. "Stop!" she shouted through the bond. "Please, stop!" The Ethron didn't respond. Couldn't respond. It was too far gone in the fight. Sina did the only thing she could think of. She ran between them. Both beasts froze mid-strike, claws inches from her body. "Stop," Senna said again. Out loud this time, her voice shaking. "Both of you, just stop." The gray beast's white eyes fixed on her. "Human. Weak. Why do you protect betrayer?" "Because it's not a betrayer. It's a survivor, just like you." Sina's hands were up, empty, vulnerable. "You were both taken, both hurt, both broken, but you made different choices about how to live with that pain. I chose freedom. It chose chains. It chose me," Sina said. "And I chose it. That's not chains. That's pack." The gray beast laughed. The sound was broken, wrong. "Pack? Humans killed our pack, destroyed everything, and you speak of pack with one of them?" "I was destroyed too." Senna took a step forward. The Ethron made a warning sound, but she ignored it. "I was sold, rejected, called cursed and worthless. I know what it feels like to have everything taken from you." The gray beast went still. "Then you understand. Understand why they must hurt, must pay. I understand wanting them to hurt. I understand rage." Senna's voice cracked. "But I also understand that killing everyone won't bring back what you lost. It'll just make you more alone. Already alone. Always been alone." "No." The Ethron stepped forward, positioning itself beside Senna. "You have me. You always had me. Even when I thought you were dead, you were alive, you survived. That means something." The gray beast's white eyes were wet. "You don't want me. I'm broken. Ruined. So am I. The Ethron moved closer. So is she. We're all broken. But we're broken together. That's what makes us pack. For a long moment, the gray beast just stood there, trembling, fighting something internal. Then it collapsed, just folded in on itself like a puppet with cut strings. Can't stop, it whispered. The rage, the pain, it's all I have left. If I let it go, there's nothing, just empty. The Ethron lay down beside its sibling, pressed its nose against the gray fur. Then we fill the empty together, it said softly. Slowly, carefully, until you remember what it's like to be more than pain. Senna knelt beside them both. Her hand touched the gray beast's scarred flank. It flinched, but didn't attack. We can help you, Senna whispered. If you let us. The gray beast's white eyes closed. They'll kill me, the human king. He'll see monster, not broken thing. Then we don't let him decide. Senna looked at the Ethron, saw understanding in its eyes. We make our own choice. Together. Behind her, she heard Gareth's voice calling, Senna, what's the situation? Senna stood, walked to the entrance of the ravine. The old soldier took one look at her face and went pale. It's still alive. Yes. And? Senna met his eyes. And it's coming with us. That's not the mission? I don't care what the mission is. Her voice was hard, final. That creature is the Ethron's family, the only family either of them has, and I won't let Valdrich murder it just because it's convenient. Gareth stared at her. He'll kill you for this. You know that, right? He'll use that venom and kill the beast and probably you too for defying him. Probably. Senna felt something settle in her chest. A decision made, a line crossed. But at least I'll die choosing something instead of having everything chosen for me. She turned back to the beasts. The Ethron had helped its sibling stand. Both of them were battered, bleeding, but alive. Can you walk? Senna asked the gray beast. It nodded weakly. For now. Then we go. Now. Before they realize what we're doing. They moved fast through the ravine, the two beasts supporting each other. Behind them, Senna heard Gareth arguing with the soldiers, buying them time. They made it to the forest before the shouting started. They're running, one of the soldiers yelled. The beast and the Omega, they're escaping. Arrows whistled past. One clipped Senna's shoulder. She gasped, but kept moving. The Ethron turned. Get on, both of you. Senna climbed onto its back. The gray beast stumbled, too weak to run much further. Leave me, it said. Save yourselves. No. The Ethron's voice was firm. We survive together or not at all. It grabbed its sibling by the scruff of the neck, gentle but firm, and started dragging it deeper into the forest. They ran for hours, through trees, over streams, into parts of the wilderness so deep and dark that even the soldiers wouldn't follow. When they finally stopped, all three of them collapsed in exhaustion. Senna's shoulder was bleeding. The Ethron had wounds from the fight that needed cleaning. The gray beast was barely conscious. We can't go back, Senna said into the darkness. You know that, right? We just made ourselves enemies of the kingdom. Good, the Ethron rumbled. I was getting tired of serving. Senna almost laughed. Almost. What do we do now? We survive, like we've always done. The beast looked at its sibling. But this time, we do it free. Free. The word hung in the air like a promise, like a curse. Senna touched the collar still locked around the Ethron's neck. The gray beast had no collar. It had escaped before they'd put one on. We need to get this off you, she said. Can't. Only Valdrich's bloodline can open it. That's the spell. Senna's mind raced. Valdrich's bloodline, which meant his blood, she said slowly. If we get his blood, we'd have to kill him. Or hurt him badly enough to take some. Senna looked at the Ethron. Is that what you want? The beast was quiet for a long time, then, I want to be free, really free, not just running, not just surviving, free. Then we go back. Senna's voice was steady now, certain. We go back, and we take what's ours. The gray beast lifted its head. Its white eyes gleamed in the darkness. I like her, it said to the Ethron. Broken human, good pack, the best pack, the Ethron agreed. They slept that night in a cave, the three of them pressed together for warmth. Senna dreamed of fire and freedom and blood on stone. When she woke, the Ethron was staring at her. "You know this is suicide," it said. "I know. And you're still choosing this." "I'm choosing us." Senna sat up, wincing as her wounded shoulder protested. "I'm choosing Pack. I'm choosing freedom, even if it kills me." The Ethron pressed its nose against her forehead. "Then we do this together, all three of us. And whatever happens, we don't regret it," Senna finished. The gray beast stirred. "When do we go?" Senna thought about Valdrich, about the fortress, about the vial of shadow venom and the chains and the 50 years of slavery. "Tonight," she said. "We go tonight, and we end this." They spent the day preparing. The gray beast was weak but recovering. Its wounds were starting to heal, and with food and rest, some of the wildness was fading from its eyes. "What's your name?" Sina asked it. The beast tilted its head. "Name? What did your pack call you before?" It was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Kira. My name was Kira." "Kira," Senna tested the word. "It's good to meet you. Really meet you." Kira's white eyes studied her. "You're strange human. Not afraid, not cruel, just strange. I get that a lot." They made a plan. Simple. Brutal. Probably doomed. They would enter the fortress through the eastern drainage tunnels, the ones used to flush waste from the kitchens. Senna had seen them during her wanderings, had memorized the routes the way she memorized everything. From there, they'd make their way to Valdrich's chambers. He slept alone, protected only by 2 guards outside his door. The Ethron and Kira would handle the guards. Senna would handle Valdrich. "You can't fight him," the Ethron said. "He's an alpha, trained warrior. He'll kill you." "Not if I'm smart about it." Senna pulled out the knife Valdrich had given her. The irony wasn't lost on her. "And not if he's asleep." "This is insane." "I know." Senna smiled. It felt strange on her face. "But I'm done being sane. Sane got me sold, got me enslaved, got me used as a weapon." Her grip tightened on the knife. "Insane might actually get me free." As the sun set, they moved. The drainage tunnels were as disgusting as Sina remembered, waist-deep water that smelled like rot and worse. But they were also unguarded. Nobody expected an attack from the sewers. They climbed out in the lower kitchens, empty at this hour. The Ethron led the way, its steps silent despite its size. Kira followed, still weak but determined. Senna brought up the rear, heart hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. They made it to the royal wing without being spotted. The guards outside Valdrich's door never saw them coming. The Ethron took one. Kira took the other. Both kills were silent, efficient. Senna pushed open the door. Valdrich's chambers were massive, all dark wood and darker stone. A fire burned low in the hearth, and in the center, on a bed carved from black iron, the king slept. Senna crossed the room on silent feet. The knife felt heavy in her hand. She stood over him, looked down at the man who'd bought her, used her, threatened her. The man who'd owned her completely for weeks that felt like years. All she had to do was drive the knife into his throat, take his blood. Free the Ethron, free herself. Simple. Easy. Valdrich's eyes opened. For a heartbeat, they just stared at each other. Then he moved. Fast. So impossibly fast. His hand shot out and grabbed her wrist, twisting until the knife clattered to the floor. His other hand closed around her throat. "I knew you'd come," he said. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "I knew the moment you ran that you'd come back for this." Senna couldn't breathe, couldn't speak. "The question is," Valdrich continued, sitting up but not releasing her, "did you come to kill me or to free the beast?" Behind her, the Ethron roared and charged through the door. Valdrich threw Senna aside and rose to meet it. The room exploded into violence. Senna hit the wall hard, vision swimming. She scrambled for the knife, found it, turned just in time to see Valdrich and the Ethron locked in combat. The king was holding his own. Barely. He had a sword now, pulled from somewhere, and was using it to keep the beast at bay. Kira limped into the room, adding her fury to the fight. 2 beasts against 1 alpha king. It should have been over in seconds. But Valdrich was laughing, actually laughing. Finally, he shouted over the sounds of battle. Finally, you show what you really are. His sword flashed. Kira yelped and fell back, a deep gash across her shoulder. The Ithron lunged. Valdrich's blade caught it across the face. Blood sprayed. No! Senna screamed. She charged, knife raised. No training, no skill, just desperation and rage. Valdrich turned to meet her, and Senna drove the knife into his side. Between the ribs, deep. He gasped, stumbled back. Senna pulled the knife out. Blood poured from the wound. Valdrich looked down at it, then at her. His expression was proud? Good, he said. You finally learned to fight. Then he collapsed. Senna stood there shaking, knife dripping red, not quite believing what she'd just done. The Ithron limped over to her. Its face was bleeding, but its eyes were bright. Is he dead? Senna checked. Valdrich was still breathing, barely, but alive. No, but he's dying. Good enough, the Ithron lowered its head. Take his blood. Open the collar. We need to move before guards come. Senna's hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the knife, but she managed to collect some of Valdrich's blood in a small vial from his bedside table. Then she stood and faced the Ithron. The collar's lock required blood from Valdrich's line. She poured the blood over the runes, whispered the words the Ithron taught her, words in that ancient language that hurt her throat to speak. The collar clicked, fell, hit the ground with a sound like chains breaking. The Ithron stood absolutely still for a moment. Then it threw back its head and howled, a sound of pure, overwhelming freedom that shook the walls. Kira joined in. Their voices twined together, siblings reunited, both finally unchained. Senna felt tears streaming down her face. They'd done it. They were free. Behind her, Valdrich coughed, blood on his lips. You won't make it, he whispered. The whole kingdom will hunt you. Senna looked down at him, at the man who'd controlled her life for so long. Then they'll hunt someone who knows how to survive, she said. She turned to the beasts. We need to go, now! They ran, through the fortress, down corridors, past guards who tried to stop them and died trying, out into the night, into the forest, into freedom that tasted like blood and smoke and everything she'd ever dreamed of. Behind them, the fortress erupted in alarm bells and shouting, but ahead of them was wilderness, darkness, possibility. Senna rode the Ithron with Kira running alongside, both beasts moving faster than anything human could follow, and for the first time in her entire cursed, rejected, worthless life. Senna smiled. They ran until the forest swallowed them whole. Trees older than kingdoms closed overhead, blocking out the moon. The ground was soft with moss and fallen leaves that muffled their footsteps. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit, horns, dogs, shouting men, faded into the distance. Senna clung to the Ithron's back, her wounded shoulders screaming with every jolt. Blood soaked through her shirt. Her hands were sticky with it, some hers, some Valdrich's. She'd stabbed a king, actually stabbed him. The thought made her want to laugh and vomit at the same time. We need to stop, the Ithron said through their bond. Kira's bleeding badly, and you're about to pass out. Senna looked over at the gray beast running beside them. Kira's white eyes were glazed with pain, and the gash across her shoulder was leaving a trail of blood on the forest floor. There, Senna said, pointing to an outcropping of rocks ahead. Cave. We can defend it if they find us. They stumbled into the shallow cave and collapsed. All three of them were shaking, from exhaustion, from adrenaline crash, from the sheer impossible reality of what they'd just done. Senna slid off the Ithron's back and immediately her legs gave out. She hit the ground hard. Easy, the Ithron said aloud. Its voice was rough, unused to speaking. You're hurt worse than you think. I'm fine. You're bleeding. So are you. So is Kira. Senna forced herself to sit up, to focus. We need to stop the bleeding. All of us. Or we'll be too weak to run when they find us. If they find us, Kira said weakly. Her voice was softer than the Ithron's, more musical, despite the pain. Deep forest. Old magic here. Humans don't like old magic. Valdrich isn't most humans. Senna ripped a strip from her shirt and pressed it against her shoulder. The pain was white hot, but she bit down on a scream. He'll come. Or he'll send his best hunters. We probably have until morning. Maybe less. The Ethron limped over to Kira, inspecting the wound on her shoulder with worried eyes. This is deep. Needs stitching. No needle? No thread. Kira's laugh was bitter. Just pain and hope it closes. Senna looked around the cave. There had to be something they could use. The forest provided. That's what the old stories said. She just had to remember which plants did what. Her father had taught her some healing back before he'd decided she was worthless. Taught her which herbs stopped bleeding, which ones fought infection. He'd beaten that knowledge into her alongside the curses, never knowing she'd actually remember. Wait here, Senna said. She staggered to her feet. Where are you going? The Ethron demanded. To find moss, the kind that grows on north-facing rocks near water. It's a coagulant. She swayed, caught herself. I'll be back. I'll come with you. No, you stay with Kira. Keep her warm. Keep her talking. Senna met the Ethron's burning eyes. If I'm not back in an hour, run. Don't wait for me. Just run and don't stop. I'm not leaving you. Yes, you are. Because you're finally free and I'm not letting you waste that because of me. Senna's voice cracked. Promise me, please. The Ethron stared at her for a long moment. Then, 1 hour, not a second more. Senna nodded and stumbled out into the darkness. The forest at night was alive in ways the fortress never was. Things moved in the shadows. Animals, spirits, older things that didn't have names. Senna felt them watching as she searched, their eyes glowing faintly between the trees. She found the moss growing on a boulder near a small stream, grabbed handfuls of it, stuffing it into her pockets. Then she found yarrow, the white flowers glowing faintly in the moonlight. Good for wounds, good for fever. On her way back, she heard voices. Senna dropped low behind a fallen log, heart hammering. Tracks lead this way. Fresh blood on the leaves. Could be animal. Could be the Omega and those beasts. The king wants them found. Alive if possible. The king. Valdrich was alive. Senna's breath caught in her throat. She'd been so sure. The wound had been deep, so much blood. Is it true he's dying? The second voice asked. Not dying, but close enough. The healers say the blade missed anything vital by inches. He'll live, but he's furious. A pause. Never seen him like this. Usually he's cold, calculated. But this is rage. Personal. Can't blame him. His own weapon turning on him. That's gotta sting. We find them. We bring them back. The Omega dies slow. The beast dies slower. King's orders. The voices moved away, boots crunching on dead leaves. Senna waited until she couldn't hear them anymore. Then she waited longer. When she finally moved, her whole body was shaking. Valdrich was alive. And he was coming for them. She made it back to the cave with minutes to spare on her hour. The Ethron visibly relaxed when she appeared. Thought you weren't coming back. Almost didn't. Senna dumped the moss and yarrow on the cave floor. Ran into hunters. They're close. Maybe a mile out. Kira lifted her head. How many? 2. But there'll be more. Senna started packing the moss against Kira's wound, working fast. The gray beast hissed in pain but held still. Valdrich is alive, and he wants us back, badly. Then we run, the Ethron said. Where? They're tracking us. Following the blood. Senna moved to her own shoulder, stuffing moss under the makeshift bandage. We can't outrun them forever, not injured like this. Then we fight. 2 wounded beasts and an Omega with a knife against an entire kingdom? Senna laughed. It came out broken. That's not a fight, that's suicide. The Ethron's eyes blazed. Then what do you suggest? Senna was quiet for a moment, thinking. Her mind raced through options, discarding them one by one. They couldn't run, couldn't fight, couldn't hide. But maybe... We don't run from the kingdom, she said slowly. We go to it, a different part of it. Both beasts stared at her. Explain, Kira said. The eastern territories, the ones that were being attacked, the villages that were burned. Senna looked between them. Those people lost everything because of Valdrich's war, because he used the Ethron as a weapon instead of trying to understand what was happening. How does that help us? Because those people hate him, hate the kingdom, hate everything he represents. Senna's mind was working faster now, pieces clicking together. If we go to them, if we offer them something Valdrich never did, they'll kill us on sight, the Ethron interrupted. We're the beast that destroyed their lives. No. Kira destroyed their lives, and she did it because she was broken and alone and hurting. Cinna looked at the gray beast. But she's not alone anymore. And if we can show them that, if we can prove that she's not the monster they think, they won't believe it, Kira said. Her white eyes were haunted. I killed their families, their children. No words will fix that. Maybe not words. Senna's hand went to the vial of Valdrich's blood still tucked in her belt. But maybe actions. Maybe if we help them rebuild, protect them, show them what you could have been if the kingdom hadn't broken you. The cave went silent. That's insane, the Ethron said finally. I know. It'll never work. Probably not. We'll all die. Maybe. Senna met its eyes. But we'll die trying to be something other than what Valdrich made us, and that's worth more than running until they catch us. The Ethron looked at Kira. Some silent communication passed between the siblings. I've been monster for so long, Kira said quietly. Don't know if I remember how to be anything else. Then we teach you. The Ethron pressed its nose against its sister's head. Together, like pack. Kira's white eyes closed. Okay, we tried. They rested until dawn, taking turns keeping watch. When the sun rose, they moved east, toward the territories they'd helped destroy, toward people who had every reason to kill them on sight, toward the only chance they had left. The first village they reached was called Millbrook, or it had been, before the fires. Now it was just ruins, burned buildings, scorched earth, a few survivors picking through the wreckage with the hollow-eyed look of people who'd lost everything. Senna approached slowly, hands up and empty. The Ethron and Kira hung back, but they were impossible to miss. Two massive beasts lurking at the tree line. An old woman saw her first, dropped the charred beam she'd been moving and screamed, "Beast! The beasts are back!" People scattered, some ran, others grabbed weapons, pitchforks, axes, anything they could find. A man stepped forward, big, scarred, holding a wood-cutting axe like he knew how to use it. "You've got some nerve showing your face here," he said. His voice was rough with smoke damage, after what those things did. "I know," Cinna said. She kept her hands visible, non-threatening. "I know what she did. I know you want revenge. I'm not here to stop you from trying." The man's eyes narrowed. "Then why are you here?" "To offer you a choice." Cinna gestured to the ruins around them. "Valdrich sent his beast to destroy you. Used it as a weapon without asking why it was killing, without trying to stop it before it got this bad. He failed you. And you're different. I'm the handler he bought to control that beast, but I'm also the Omega who stabbed him and ran." Senna pulled back her shirt, showing the wound on her shoulder. "We're fugitives now. Hunted. Same as you've been hunted by his wars and his weapons for years." Murmurs ran through the survivors. The man with the axe didn't lower it. "What's your point?" "My point is that the beast who destroyed your village, her name is Kira. She's been broken by 50 years of torture and loneliness. She killed because she didn't know how else to process that pain." Senna took a breath. "But she's not alone anymore. And she wants to help rebuild what she destroyed. Why should we believe that?" "Because I'm offering you something Valdrich never did." Senna pulled out the vial of blood. His blood. Taken when I stabbed him. It can open spelled locks, free enslaved creatures, break the bonds he's used to control this kingdom for years. The crowd went dead silent. "You're lying," someone said. "I'm not, and I'll prove it." Senna looked back at the beasts. "Kira, come here," slowly. The gray beast approached, limping on her wounded leg. People scrambled back, raising weapons. Kira stopped 10 feet from Senna, lowered her massive head. "Tell them," Senna said softly, "in your own words." Kira's white eyes swept across the survivors. When she spoke, her grinding stone voice made several people flinch. "I killed your families, your children, your lives." Each word was painful, deliberate. "I was angry, broken, wanted everyone to hurt like I hurt. And now," the man with the axe demanded, "now I have Pack again. Reason to be more than pain. Kira's gaze dropped. Cannot undo what I did. Can only, try to do better. If you let me. The man stared at her for a long moment. Then he laughed. It was a harsh, ugly sound. You think pretty words fix burned homes? Dead children? He raised the axe. I should kill you right now. You should, Kira agreed. Would be fair? Just... The axe wavered. But if you kill me, changes nothing. Your village still burned. Your people still dead. Your kingdom still broken. Kira took a step forward, exposing her throat. Or you let me help. Let me use this strength that destroyed to rebuild, to protect, to be weapon for you, instead of against you. The man's hands were shaking. I can't just forgive. Not asking forgiveness, asking chance to earn less hate. Kira's white eyes met his. Please. The axe lowered, slowly. The man's face was wet. My daughter was 6 years old, he whispered. She died screaming. Because of you. I know, I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't bring her back. No. Kira's voice cracked. But maybe preventing other daughters from dying gives her death meaning. Maybe. The man stood there for a long moment. Then he threw the axe down and walked away, shoulders shaking with sobs. The old woman who'd screamed first stepped forward. She looked at Senna, then at Kira, then back at Senna. You're serious about this? About helping? Yes. And that blood? It really can break Valdrich's spells? Yes. The woman's eyes hardened. Then we have terms. You help us rebuild. You use those beasts to protect us from the king's retaliation when he comes looking for you. And you teach us how to break those spells so we can free ourselves from his control. Cinna felt hope flare in her chest. Agreed. And when he comes, and he will come, you stand between us and him. You fight for us the way you fought for him. The old woman's voice dropped lower. Until you're dead, or he is. Those are the terms. Take them or leave. Senna looked at the Ethron and Kira. Both beasts nodded. We'll take them, Senna said. They spent the next 3 weeks rebuilding Millbrook. It was brutal work. Senna's shoulder healed slowly, leaving a scar that ached when it rained. The Ethron and Kira used their strength to move debris, pull down dangerous structures, haul timber from the forest. And slowly, painfully slowly, the survivors started to trust them. Children who'd hidden when the beasts arrived began to creep closer, curious. The Ethron let them touch its fur, careful to move slowly, to never show teeth. Kira was harder. The survivors looked at her with hate that would probably never fade. But when she worked, pulling stones, carrying beams, never complaining even when her wounds reopened, some of that hate softened into something more complicated. Not forgiveness, but maybe coexistence. Senna taught them what she knew about Valdrich's blood magic, showed them how to use it to break spelled chains, open locked doors, free bound creatures. The old woman, her name was Marta, learned fast. This changes everything, Marta said one night, studying the vial of blood by firelight. If we can replicate this, if we can get more royal blood, we could free every enslaved creature in the kingdom. That's rebellion, Senna said. That's justice. Marta's eyes were hard. Valdrich has been bleeding this kingdom dry for decades, using fear and magic to control us. If we can break that control, he'll come for you with everything he has. Let him come. Marta smiled. It wasn't friendly. We've got 2 beasts and an Omega who knows how to use them. That's more than we've ever had before. Word spread. Survivors from other burned villages started arriving at Millbrook, refugees from the wars, escaped slaves, people who'd been broken by Valdrich's kingdom and were looking for something, anything, different. By the 4th week, Millbrook wasn't just a village anymore, it was a sanctuary, a resistance, and Senna was at the center of it. She didn't want to be, didn't ask for it, but people kept coming to her with questions, problems, decisions that needed making. They looked at her like she was a leader, like she was someone worth following. It was terrifying. You're good at this, the Ethron observed one night. They were sitting on a hill overlooking the rebuilt village, watching fires burn in hearts that had been cold for months. I'm not good at anything, Senna said. I'm just making it up as I go. That's what leading is, making it up and hoping it works. The beast's tail swished. But you're doing more than hoping. You're listening, adapting, treating people like they matter. They do matter. Exactly. That's why they follow you. The Ethron leaned against her. Valdrich ruled through fear. You're leading through respect. That's the difference. Senna wanted to argue. But looking down at the village, at people who'd lost everything rebuilding together, at children playing instead of hiding, at hope where there'd been nothing but ash, she couldn't. Maybe she was leading. Maybe that was okay. Kira approached, her white eyes reflecting firelight. Scouts report movement, 3 miles west. Soldiers, maybe 50. Senna's chest tightened. Valdrich? Don't know, but they're coming here. We'll arrive by dawn. Senna stood. Then we prepare. Get everyone who can fight to the barricades. Women and children to the shelters we built. Arm everyone. If this is Valdrich's army, we make them regret coming. And if it's not, the Ethron asked, then we find out what they want before we start killing. They prepared through the night, barricades reinforced, weapons distributed. The Ethron and Kira positioned at the main entrance, ready to defend. When dawn came, the soldiers approached under a white flag. Senna stood at the barricade with Marta beside her, hand on the knife that had become her constant companion. The soldiers stopped 50 yards out. Their leader dismounted, a woman with silver hair and war paint scars. Maris. Senna's blood went cold. Valdrich's counselor, the one who'd offered her choices, who'd tested her loyalty. I come to talk, Maris called out. Not to fight. Talk from there, Senna shouted back. Close enough. Maris smiled. Smart. Valdrich said you'd learn to be careful. She gestured to her soldiers to stay back, then walked forward alone. Slowly, hands visible. She stopped at the barricade. You've been busy, Maris said, looking around at the rebuilt village. Impressive. Dangerous. Exactly what I hoped you'd do. What do you want? Senna's hand tightened on her knife. To make you an offer. From the king. I'm not going back. He knows. That's not the offer. Maris pulled a sealed letter from her coat. Valdrich is dying. Slowly. The wound you gave him is infected. Healers say he has weeks at most. Senna felt the world tilt. I don't understand. He's dying. The kingdom needs a ruler, and he's decided it should be you. Silence. Complete, absolute silence. Then Senna laughed. She couldn't help it. The sound came out broken and borderline hysterical. That's insane. Is it? Maris's eyes were sharp. You've proven you can lead, can inspire loyalty, can control the beast that he never could. You've built something here in weeks that took him decades to destroy. She held out the letter. He's offering you the throne. Full pardon for yourself and the beasts. Freedom to rule as you see fit, in exchange for one thing. What? You come back. You end this rebellion peacefully, and you sit beside him as he dies, learning how to rule the kingdom properly instead of burning it down from the outside. Senna stared at the letter like it was a snake. Why would he do this? Because he's not stupid. He knows the kingdom is fracturing, knows that when he dies there'll be a power vacuum that tears everything apart. Maris's voice dropped. And because I think, in his own twisted way, he respects you. You're the only person who ever fought him and won. I didn't win. I ran. You survived. Against him, that's the same thing. Maris pushed the letter through a gap in the barricade. Read it, think about it. You have 3 days to decide. She turned and walked back to her soldiers. Senna stood there holding the letter, her hands shaking. Behind her, Marta spoke. What does it say? Senna broke the seal. Read the words written in Valdrich's sharp, precise handwriting. Senna Vale, you stabbed me, left me to die, freed my weapon and turned my kingdom against me. By every law and custom, I should have you executed. Instead, I'm offering you a crown. I'm dying. The healers are clear on this. The infection from your blade is spreading and there's no cure. I have weeks, perhaps a month. I've spent those weeks watching what you built in Millbrook, watching how you lead, how you unite people I could only control through fear. You're doing something I never could, giving them hope, instead of terror. The kingdom needs that, needs you. Come back. Learn to rule. Take the throne when I'm gone and prove that an Omega can be more than the world tells her she is. Or stay there and watch everything burn when I die and the vultures descend. Your choice. You have 3 days. Valdrich Senna read it twice, 3 times. The words didn't change. He wants me to be queen, she said aloud. The words felt foreign, impossible. The Ethron moved to her side. What do you want? That was the question, wasn't it? What did she want? To run? To hide? To spend the rest of her life looking over her shoulder? Or to step into the power that had been used against her and reshape it into something different? I want to think, Sina said. 3 days. We have 3 days. She spent those days in agony. Arguments raged through Millbrook. Some people, led by Marta, said it was a trap, that Valdrich would kill her the moment she returned, that she'd be abandoning everything they'd built. Others said it was an opportunity, that changing the kingdom from the throne would do more good than any rebellion. The Ithron and Kira stayed neutral, letting Sana decide for herself. On the 3rd morning, Sana made her choice. She called everyone together, the survivors, the refugees, the fighters who'd gathered at Millbrook, stood before them with the Ithron on one side, Kira on the other. I'm going back, she said. Her voice was steady, clear. Not because Valdrich ordered it, not because I'm afraid, but because I can do more good on that throne than I can hiding here. Murmurs ran through the crowd. But I'm not going alone, and I'm not going as his pet. Senna looked at Marta. You're coming with me, as my advisor, along with anyone else who wants to help reshape that kingdom into something that doesn't break people. Marta's eyes widened. You're serious? Completely. We're going to take his offer, take his throne, and we're going to burn down every law, every custom, every system he built on slavery and fear. Senna's hand tightened on her knife. We're going to prove that the worthless Omega can be the best queen this kingdom has ever seen. The crowd erupted, some in cheers, some in arguments, some in stunned silence. But Senna didn't hear them. She was already planning, already calculating what needed to happen next. 3 days later, Sina rode back to the fortress. Not alone, not in chains, but at the head of a column of 50 people from Millbrook, survivors and refugees who'd chosen to follow her. The Ethron and Kira walked beside her, no collars, no chains, free. Maris met them at the gates with an expression that might have been respect. The king is waiting, she said. They brought Senna to the same war room where she'd first been threatened, but it looked different now, smaller somehow, less threatening. Valdrich sat in his chair and Sina's breath caught. He looked awful, gray skin, sunken eyes. The infection was eating him alive. But when he saw her, he smiled. You came. I did. Why? Senna walked closer, met his ice-blue eyes without flinching. Because you were right. The kingdom needs someone who knows what it's like to be broken, who understands that strength isn't just violence. She pulled out her knife, his knife, the one he'd given her. And because I'm going to finish what I started. Valdrich's smile widened. Good. Then sit. We have a lot of work to do and not much time. Over the next 2 weeks, Valdrich taught Senna everything. How to navigate the council, how to read treaties, how to identify which nobles were trustworthy and which would stab her in the back the first chance they got. He taught her about the kingdom's resources, its weaknesses, its enemies beyond the borders. And slowly, painfully, he taught her how to wield power without becoming what he'd been. Fear is easy, he said one afternoon, his voice weak. Respect is hard, but respect lasts. Fear just breeds resentment. You're telling me this now? Senna couldn't keep the bitterness from her voice. After decades of ruling through terror? I'm telling you this so you don't make my mistakes. Valdrich coughed, blood on his lips. I was a good soldier, a terrible king. You can be better. Will be better. On the 15th day, he called for the council. They assembled in the war room, all 12 of them, plus Marta representing Millbrook, plus the Ithron and Kira standing guard behind Senna's chair. Valdrich stood, barely. Maris had to help him. I'm dying, he said without preamble. You all know this. The question is what happens next. The council members shifted uncomfortably. I've chosen my successor. Senevale will take the throne when I'm gone. Uproar. An Omega shit? She's barely trained. This is madness. Valdrick's voice cut through the noise like a blade. She stabbed me, freed my greatest weapon, built a resistance from nothing, and she did it all while you sat here arguing about traditions and customs. His eyes swept the room. She's proven she can lead. Can you say the same? Silence. The vote is simple. Accept her as queen, or leave this council and find somewhere else to peddle your influence. Valdrick looked at each of them. Choose. One by one they nodded, some reluctantly, some with calculation in their eyes, but they all nodded. Good. Valdrick sat back down, exhausted. Then it's settled. Senevale becomes queen upon my death. You will serve her as you served me, or you will learn what happens when you cross someone who survived me. He looked at Senna. Anything to add, Your Majesty? Senna stood. Her legs were shaking, but she kept her voice steady. One thing. The first law I enact as queen will be this. No more enslaved creatures. No more spelled collars. No more using living beings as weapons. She looked at the Ithron and Kira. Freedom for all who were forced to serve. Starting today. The council erupted again, but Valdrick was laughing. Actually laughing. Told you, he said to Maris. Told you she'd burn it all down and build something better. He died 3 days later. Senna sat beside his bed, holding his hand. The hand that had threatened her, choked her, owned her. It felt strange offering comfort to the man who'd bought her like property, but he'd also given her the knife that freed her, the training that shaped her, the throne that would let her reshape his kingdom. Thank you, she said quietly. Valdrick's eyes opened one last time. For what? For being exactly terrible enough that I learned how not to be. Senna squeezed his hand. Rest now. I'll take it from here. He smiled, closed his eyes, and stopped breathing. Senna sat there for a long moment. Then she stood, straightened her shoulders, and walked out to face her kingdom. The coronation was simple. No grand ceremony, no elaborate ritual. Just Senna standing in the throne room with the Ithron and Kira beside her, surrounded by people from Millbrook and refugees from across the kingdom, while Maris placed a simple crown on her head. Do you swear to lead this kingdom with wisdom and mercy? Maris asked. I swear to lead it like someone who knows what it's like to have nothing, Senna said. And who'll fight to make sure nobody else has to feel that way again? Then by the power vested in this council, I name you Queen Senevale, first of her name, breaker of chains. Maris stepped back. Long may you reign! The room erupted in cheers. Senna looked out at them, at the survivors and the fighters and the broken people she'd gathered, and felt something shift in her chest. Not quite belief, not yet, but maybe the beginning of it. She was queen now, queen of a kingdom that had tried to destroy her, and she was going to make them remember the girl they'd called worthless. She was going to make them see what she'd always been. Necessary. The crown was heavier than Senna expected. Not physically, it was just iron and a few cheap stones, nothing like the jeweled monstrosity Valdrick had worn. But the weight of it pressed down on her skull like a promise she wasn't sure she could keep. She stood in the throne room the morning after her coronation, staring at the empty seat Valdrick had occupied for 20 years. The room was silent, except for the sound of her breathing and the soft rumble of the Ethron beside her. You don't have to sit in it, the beast said through their bond. Yes, I do. That's the whole point. Senna moved forward, each step deliberate. If I'm going to change this kingdom, I have to claim the symbol that controlled it. She sat down. The throne was cold, uncomfortable, built for someone larger, harder, crueler than she'd ever be. Perfect. Let them see what happens when the broken thing takes the throne, Senna said aloud. The doors burst open. Marta strode in with a stack of papers that looked ready to collapse under its own weight. Good, you're up. We have problems. It's been less than 12 hours since I was crowned, and in those 12 hours, 3 noble houses have declared they won't recognize an Omega Queen, 2 territories are refusing to pay taxes until you prove yourself worthy, and someone tried to poison the water supply in the eastern barracks. Marta dropped the papers on a side table. Oh, and your father showed up at the gates demanding to see you. Senna's blood went cold. What? Your father, the one who sold you. He's outside with a dozen pack members, claiming he has a right to counsel the new queen since you're his blood. Marta's expression was carved from stone. Want me to have the guards throw him out, or should we let Kira eat him? Cinna's hands clenched on the armrests. Her father, here, after everything. The Ethron growled low in its chest. Say the word, and I'll tear his throat out. No. Cinna stood. Bring him in. Let's hear what he has to say. Are you sure? I'm sure. If I hide from him now, it'll look like weakness, and I can't afford weakness. Cinna straightened her shoulders. Bring him in, alone. No pack members, just him. Marta nodded and left. 5 minutes later, the doors opened again. Cinna's father walked in like he owned the place. He looked older than she remembered, grayer, harder, with lines around his mouth from years of scowling. But his eyes were the same, cold, calculating, empty of anything resembling love. He stopped 10 feet from the throne, looked at her, at the crown, at the Ethron standing guard. Then he smiled. Well, look at you. The cursed daughter becomes a queen. He shook his head. Never thought I'd see the day. Cinna kept her voice level. Why are you here? To offer my congratulations. And my services. He spread his hands. You're new to this. You'll need advisors, people who understand pack politics, bloodline traditions. I can help with that. You sold me to a slave auction. I saved your life. His voice didn't even waver. Your pack wanted you dead, called you demon-touched, corrupted. I got you out before they killed you. You should be thanking me. Cinna felt something crack inside her chest. Not breaking, hardening. You told them I was cursed. You fed their fear. You made them hate me. She stood, descending the steps slowly. And then you sold me for profit and walked away without looking back. I did what I had to do. Her father's jaw tightened. You were always trouble. Always speaking to animals, acting like you were special. Someone had to teach you your place. My place. Cinna stopped in front of him. They were the same height now. When had that happened? And what place is that? Beneath the alphas. Beneath the pack. That's the natural order. He gestured around the throne room. But you've gotten lucky. Found a way to climb higher than you should have. Fine. I can work with that. Just remember where you came from. Who you really are. Cinna looked at him for a long moment. At the man who'd beaten her for being different. Who'd locked her in cellars and called her worthless. Who'd sold her like property and never once wondered if she was okay. You're right, she said quietly. I should remember who I really am. Her father's smile widened. I'm the Omega who survived everything you did to me. I'm the cursed daughter who learned to speak to beasts in a language you couldn't understand. I'm the girl you called worthless, who became queen of the kingdom you feared. Cinna's voice went hard. And I'm the woman who's about to teach you what happens when you mistake mercy for weakness. The smile died on his face. Cinna turned to the guards at the door. Remove him. He's not welcome in this castle. If he or any of his pack members approach these walls again, arrest them for trespassing. You can't. I can. I'm the queen. It's literally my job. Cinna met her father's eyes one last time. You taught me I was nothing, worthless, a curse on your bloodline. Thank you for that. Because it means I don't owe you anything. Not loyalty, not kindness, not even acknowledgement. The guards grabbed her father's arms. He fought, shouting, I'm your father! You owe me respect! You're a stranger who shares my blood, that's all. Cinna turned away, walking back to the throne. Goodbye. They dragged him out. His shouts echoed down the corridor until a door slammed and cut them off. Cinna sat back down. Her hands were shaking. The Ethron pressed its nose against her shoulder. You okay? No, but I will be. Cinna took a breath, released it. That's one problem solved. What's next? The next 3 months were a war. Not with swords and armies, though there were a few skirmishes with noble houses who thought an Omega Queen would be easy to overthrow. The Ethron and Kira handled those quickly, and after the third house lost half its soldiers to 2 very angry beasts, the challenges stopped. No. The real war was against the kingdom itself, against centuries of tradition and law and casual cruelty that had been baked into every stone of the fortress. Cinna started with the enslaved creatures. There were hundreds of them, bound by spelled collars, forced to serve in the kitchens, the stables, the guard. Some had been slaves so long they didn't remember freedom. Senna went to each one personally, used Valdrich's blood, carefully rationed, preserved, to break their collars. Offered them a choice: stay and work for fair wages, or leave and never look back. Most stayed, not because they had to, because for the first time someone had asked what they wanted. The council hated it. "You're destroying the economy," one of them shouted during a meeting. Lord Paxton, a bloated man who owned half the southern farmlands. "Those creatures are property. You can't just free them." "I can. I did. Move on." Senna looked at the budget reports Marta had prepared. Next issue. "This is madness. You're upending the entire social order." "Good. The social order was built on slavery and fear. It deserved to be upended." Senna set down the papers and looked at Paxton. "You're dismissed from the council, effective immediately." His face went purple. "You can't. I'm the queen. Watch me." She gestured to the guards. "Escort Lord Paxton out and audit his lands. I want to know exactly how many enslaved creatures he's been hiding in violation of my new laws." They dragged him out screaming about tradition and proper order. Maris, who'd stayed on the council as a counterbalance to the old guard, smiled. "You're making enemies fast. I'm making changes faster." Senna rubbed her temples. The crown was giving her a headache. "How many more like him?" 4, maybe 5, but they're scared now. You've shown you'll actually follow through on threats." Maris leaned back in her chair. "The question is whether you can maintain this pace without burning out." "I'll sleep when the kingdom stops trying to kill me. That's not sustainable." "Neither was slavery. We're doing it anyway." The freed creatures started talking. Word spread about the Omega Queen who'd broken their chains, about the beasts who protected instead of destroyed, about a kingdom that might, just might, be changing into something that didn't grind people into dust. Refugees came from neighboring territories, people who'd been exiled, rejected, broken by systems that saw them as disposable. They came looking for the queen who understood. Senna met with as many as she could, listened to their stories, cried with them sometimes, late at night when no one was watching except the Ethron. "There are so many," she told the beast one night. They were in her chambers, royal quarters now, though Senna had stripped out most of Valdrich's decorations and replaced them with nothing. "So many people who've been hurt by kingdoms like this. How do I fix all of it?" "You don't," the Ethron said gently. "You fix what you can reach, and you teach others to do the same. That's how change spreads." "It's not enough. It's more than anyone else has done." Senna pressed her face against the beast's fur. "I'm so tired." "I know, but you're not alone." The Ethron's tail wrapped around her waist. "You have me. You have Kira. You have Marta and the council members who actually believe in this. You have every person you've freed. That's more than enough to keep going." "Is it?" "Has to be. Because giving up means they were right. That you're worthless, cursed, meant to be broken." The Ethron's voice hardened, and we both know that's a lie. Senna nodded against its fur and tried to believe it. The real test came on the 4th month. The northern territories, the ones that had declared they wouldn't recognize her, sent an army. 2,000 soldiers backed by 3 noble houses and led by a general who'd served under Valdrich, General Thorne. Old, experienced, ruthless. He sent a message ahead. "Abdicate the throne and return to your proper place, or we take it from you by force." Senna read the message 3 times. Then she called a war council. "They outnumber us 5-1, Commander Roth said, studying the maps. He'd stayed loyal after the coronation, more out of professional respect than any real belief in Sina. "Our forces are scattered across the territories. We can't pull them back fast enough to defend the fortress." "Then we don't defend the fortress." Senna looked at the Ethron and Kira. "We defend the idea." "Explain," Maris said. "Thorne is coming because he thinks I'm weak. That an Omega can't hold power. That tradition will win over change." Senna's finger traced the enemy's route on the map. "We prove him wrong. Not by matching his army, but by showing him what we've built is stronger than anything he can tear down." "How?" Senna smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "We give him a choice. Same choice I gave everyone else. Join us or face the consequences. They met Thorn's army in the fields outside the fortress. Senna rode out with 300 soldiers, former slaves, freed creatures, refugees who'd learned to fight. The Ithron and Kira flanked her, massive and imposing. Across the field, Thorn's army waited. 2,000 soldiers in formation, perfect ranks, disciplined, terrifying. Senna rode forward until she was 50 yards from their front line, close enough to be heard, close enough to be killed if they decided talking was over. Thorn rode out to meet her. He was exactly what Senna expected, gray-haired, scarred, with the look of a man who'd killed enough people that a few more wouldn't matter. "So you're the Omega Queen," he said. His voice was graveled with age and smoke, smaller than I expected. "I get that a lot." Senna kept her hands visible, non-threatening. "You came to take my throne. I came to restore order. You're a pretender, an Omega playing at leadership. The kingdom needs real strength, alpha strength. The kingdom had that for centuries. It created nothing but slavery and fear." Senna gestured to the soldiers behind her. "These people chose to follow me, not because I threatened them, because I freed them. Freedom doesn't win wars, no, but it gives people something to fight for besides fear." Senna met his eyes. "I'm offering you the same choice I offered everyone else. Join me. Help rebuild this kingdom into something that doesn't destroy its own people, or try to take this throne and learn why the beasts follow me instead of you." Thorn laughed. "You think 2 beasts can stop 2,000 soldiers? I think you'd be surprised what people can do when they're fighting for something they believe in." Senna's hand rested on the knife at her belt. "But we don't have to find out. You can choose peace, choose change, or choose violence and deal with the consequences." "There are no consequences for me." Thorn drew his sword. "Just a dead Omega and a throne that goes to someone who deserves it." He turned his horse to ride back to his army. Senna called after him, "One more thing." He paused. "Every soldier in your army has family somewhere, children, parents, people who will wonder why they died fighting to preserve a system that would enslave them if they were weak enough." Senna raised her voice so everyone could hear. "I'm not asking you to fight for me. I'm asking you to think about what you're fighting for. Is it really worth dying to preserve a kingdom built on the suffering of people who look just like you?" Silence across the field. Then a soldier in Thorn's front rank lowered his spear. Then another. Then a whole section of the line started talking, arguing, some throwing down weapons. Thorn's face went red. "Hold formation! That's an order!" But the cracks had started. Soldiers were stepping back, dropping weapons. Some were walking away entirely. "Hold!" Thorn roared. A woman in officer's armor rode forward from his ranks, stopped beside Senna. "Captain Lyra," she said, "3rd Battalion. I've heard what you've done, freeing the enslaved, breaking the old laws." She looked back at Thorn. "I'd rather fight for that than die preserving what we've always done." More soldiers broke ranks. Dozens, hundreds. Thorn's army was dissolving before his eyes. "Traitors!" he screamed. "All of you!" He charged at Senna, sword raised. The Ithron moved like black lightning, caught Thorn's horse by the throat, and pulled. The general went flying, hit the ground hard. Senna dismounted, walked over to where Thorn was struggling to his feet. "You had a choice," she said quietly. "You chose wrong." "You're a mistake," he spat. "A curse on this kingdom. History will forget you. Maybe, but at least I'll have tried to do better than the men who came before me." Senna looked at Captain Lyra. "Arrest him. Non-lethal. He gets a trial like everyone else." As they led Thorn away in chains, his former soldiers approached Senna. Hundreds of them, looking uncertain but curious. "You really meant it?" one of them asked, young, barely old enough to hold a sword. "About changing things? I really meant it." Senna looked at all of them. "But I can't do it alone. I need people willing to work, to fight when necessary, to build when the fighting's done. Can you do that?" They nodded. Some reluctantly, some with hope in their eyes that looked fragile as glass. "Then welcome to the new kingdom," Senna said. "Try not to break it. We just got it working." The months that followed were brutal. Rebuilding a kingdom while trying not to let it collapse was like walking a wire over fire. One wrong step and everything burned. But slowly, impossibly, it worked. The freed creatures started businesses, learned trades, Some even joined the council, bringing perspectives that had been silenced for generations. The territories that had rejected Sina started sending envoys, testing the waters, seeing if this Omega Queen was real or just another tyrant wearing a different crown. Sina met with all of them, listened, compromised where she could, stood firm where she couldn't, and through it all, the Ithron and Kira were there. Not as weapons, as partners, as pack. One night, 6 months into her reign, Sina stood on the balcony outside her chambers and looked down at the fortress. It was different now. Lights in windows that had been dark, laughter from the courtyards. Markets where freed creatures sold goods alongside humans, both groups eyeing each other warily but coexisting. It wasn't perfect, wouldn't be for years, maybe decades, but it was better. "You did this," Kira said. She'd started speaking more often, her voice getting stronger with use. "Changed everything." "We did this," Senna corrected, "all of us together." The Ethron pressed against her side. "You're still tired." "Always. But it's a different kind of tired now." Senna looked at the two beasts who'd become her family. "Before, I was tired from surviving. Now I'm tired from living, building. That's better." "Is it enough?" Senna thought about her father, about the auction block, about Valdrich's ice-cold eyes and the collar around the Ethron's neck that she'd finally broken. "It has to be," she said, "because this, all of this, is proof that the things they called curses can become crowns, that the people they called worthless can change the world." A knock at her door, Marta's voice. "Your Majesty, there's someone here to see you, says it's urgent." Senna sighed. "There's always someone. Send them in." Marta opened the door. A young woman stumbled through, dirty, exhausted, with the hollow look of someone who'd traveled far on little food. "Your Majesty," she gasped, "I'm from the Western Territories. There's a situation. Enslaved creatures there heard about your laws. They've started a rebellion. The nobles are killing them, dozens already dead. They're asking—" She fell to her knees. "They're asking for you, for the queen who understands." Senna felt exhaustion try to drag her down, felt the weight of it all pressing on her shoulders. Then she looked at the Ethron, at Kira, at Marta in the doorway, at the kingdom spread out below that was finally, slowly, learning to be different. "Get the council," Senna said. "Mobilize our forces. If they want the queen who understands, that's what they'll get." She helped the young woman stand. "And get her food, water, rest. We don't leave people behind, not anymore." As Marta hurried off and the woman started crying in relief, Senna felt something settle in her chest. This was her life now, constantly fighting, constantly building, constantly trying to be the person she'd needed when she was sold on that auction block. It was exhausting. It was impossible. It was everything. The Western Rebellion took 3 weeks to resolve. Senna rode into the territory with the Ithron, Kira, and 500 soldiers, half of them former slaves who volunteered because they knew what was at stake. The nobles who'd been killing the rebels barricaded themselves in their manor houses, expecting a siege. Instead, Senna offered them trials, fair ones, with judges from the freed communities who understood both sides. Some nobles accepted, were found guilty, lost their lands and titles but kept their lives. Others fought, died fighting forces that included the very people they'd enslaved. When it was over, Senna stood in the main square of the largest town and addressed the survivors. "I can't undo what was done to you," she said, her voice carried across the square. "Can't bring back the dead or erase the scars. But I can promise you this, no one will own you again. No one will chain you, hurt you, treat you as less than human for being different." A woman in the crowd called out, "How do we know you'll keep that promise?" "Because I was you." Senna pulled back her sleeve, showing the scars on her wrists from the restraints in Valdrich's torture chamber. "I was the Omega they called cursed, the girl they sold, the one they said would never amount to anything." She met the woman's eyes. "And I'm keeping this promise because I know what it's like when no one keeps their promises to you. I won't do that to anyone else." The crowd was silent. Then someone started clapping, then another. Then the whole square erupted in applause and tears and the kind of hope that comes from being seen, really seen, for the first time. Senna stood there with the Ithron and Kira beside her and let it wash over her. This was what changing the world looked like. Not grand gestures or dramatic battles, though there'd been plenty of those. But this, standing with people who'd survived the same hells she had and telling them they mattered. That was the work. That was the crown. A year into her reign, something unexpected happened. Senna was in the throne room, mediating a dispute between two merchant guilds, when a messenger burst in. "Your Majesty, the eastern borders, something's coming." Senna's hand went to her knife. "Hostile?" "We don't know. You need to see it yourself." She followed the messenger to the eastern ramparts. The Ithron and Kira came with her, already tense. What she saw made her stop breathing. Creatures, hundreds of them, coming out of the deep forests where things older than kingdoms still lived. Not attacking, not threatening, walking, deliberately, toward the fortress. "What is this?" Commander Roth demanded, his hand on his sword. The Ithron went very still. Then it made a sound Senna had never heard before, something between a cry and a song. They heard, the beast said through their bond. Its voice was shaking. They heard about the collars being broken, about the queen who frees instead of enslaves. They're coming to see if it's real. "Tell them it's real," Senna said. "Tell them they're welcome here if they come in peace." The Ithron lifted its head and howled, that ancient language that Senna still didn't fully understand but felt in her bones. The creatures at the forest edge stopped, listened. Then they howled back, and they came. Over the next week, the fortress became something it had never been before, a sanctuary. Creatures from the deep forests, some of them species Sina didn't have names for, came to see the Omega Queen and the beasts who'd broken their chains. Some stayed, some left, but they all spread the word. Something was changing, something fundamental. The kingdom that had hunted and enslaved them for centuries was learning to do better. It wouldn't last. Senna knew that. There would be setbacks, betrayals, people who'd never accept change no matter how necessary. But for now, standing on the ramparts with the Ithron and Kira, watching creatures and humans interact warily but peacefully in the courtyards below, Senna let herself believe it might actually work. "You changed the world," Kira said quietly. "We changed it," Senna corrected. "All of us. Together. Will it last? I don't know. But we gave it a chance. That's more than it had before." The Ithron pressed its nose against her shoulder. "Thank you." "For what?" "For seeing me as more than a weapon. For giving me back my sister. For proving that the broken things can heal." The beast's voice was thick with emotion. "For everything." Senna wrapped her arms around its neck, feeling tears on her face. "Thank you for seeing me as more than worthless, for fighting beside me, for being pack when I didn't know what pack felt like." She pulled back, looking at both beasts. "We saved each other. That's what family does." The three of them stood there as the sun set, watching the kingdom they'd bled for start to become something that didn't just survive, but actually lived. Years later, when scholars would write about the Omega Queen's reign, they'd focus on the laws she changed, the system she broke, the tradition she burned down and rebuilt from ash. But they'd miss the real story. The real story was about a girl who was told she was cursed, worthless, wrong, and decided that maybe the curse was actually the kingdom that kept telling her so. The real story was about two beasts who were enslaved for 50 years, finally learning what freedom tasted like. The real story was about broken people choosing to heal together instead of staying broken alone. That's what Senna wanted remembered. Not the crown or the throne or the battles, just this. The worthless Omega became the queen who proved that worth isn't given by the people who try to destroy you. It's claimed by surviving them. Standing in the throne room on the anniversary of her coronation, Senna looked at the crown Marta was holding. A new one, made by freed craftspeople using donated materials, beautiful in its simplicity. "You don't have to wear it," Marta said softly. "You've proven your point. Everyone knows you're queen." "I'm not wearing it to prove I'm queen." Senna took the crown and placed it on her own head. "I'm wearing it to remember what it cost to get here, and to remind everyone else that crowns can be claimed by the people they tried to bury." She sat on the throne, still uncomfortable, still too big, still wrong for her in a dozen ways. Still hers. "Send in the petitioners," she said. "Let's get to work." The doors opened. People flooded in, some with disputes, some with requests. some just wanting to see the Omega Queen who'd changed everything. The Ethron and Kira took their places on either side of the throne. Not weapons, not slaves, just family standing with family. And Sina looked at them all, the broken, the hopeful, the angry, the lost, and saw herself in every face. "All right," she said, "let's hear what you need," because that was the job. That was the crown. That was the curse she'd turned into power. Listening to people who'd been told they didn't matter and proving them wrong. One decision at a time, one changed life at a time. One freed creature, one broken law, one small mercy that might grow into something bigger. It wasn't the grand story the kingdom expected, but it was the true one. And in the end, Senna thought, watching the sun stream through the throne room windows and light up the faces of people who finally had hope, that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.